Test, test.
Alrighty, thank you very much for being here. This will be the Finance Committee. Just as a quick note for everybody in attendance, we do have Channel 19 News here filming for us, so thank you very much. But we are going to get right into the budget performance update provided by the auditor. Just as a quick reference, I'm not sure if was this new one posted online or not. Okay, so today. So the updated one, which we did receive today, was also posted online. Kind of give an overview. We'll let the auditor give us some quick updates. We will go to council. We will go to the public. Come back to council, and then we will move on. We have quite a bit on the list of things to do today, so I think finance should be pretty straightforward. Everything looks pretty good, so we'll move through it as quickly as we can. So, sir, Mr. Auditor, if you would, just kind of give us the highlights, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The one we're going to deal with this evening is the one that's was 54 pages. The original one sent to you had more than was needed, and it was not properly delineated, so I printed this one out. To give you an overview, so far through the end of the year, 6 months, we have pretty much in the general fund, which is the fund we're mostly concerned about, because that's the fund that subsidizes every fund if they don't have enough money, so it's the number one fund. We had taken in $23,358,000 roughly and spent $23,255,000. We began the year with $9.7 million in the general fund, and right now we have $9.8 million in the general fund. So administration has done a good job of keeping to the budget, and although out of the 9.8, there's 613,000 that's still committed from 2024. The biggest one being that pumper we bought years ago. It's still being made, and we have 1.5 million encumbered from the departments that have spent and committed those dollars. So all in all, we've got 5.7 million uncommitted and free and unencumbered. I am very, if you look on page, the key on page 2, under the income tax, about halfway down, you'll see that the income tax, the most important one, is the employer contributions, and that shows you exactly how much employers are taking out of employees' paychecks and sending to us, an individual estimated. Those are the two main funds, and you can see that the employer contributions is right at 50% of the collections, which is pretty good as far as estimating numbers. And when we go to page 3, we'll see that under the clerk of courts, our fines are down. We're down about, it could be about $100,000 for the year. But understand with the mayor today that you have several is active, and also in talking to the acting chiefs, when they get in hand, they'll be able to spend more time in traffic. We look down at the bottom, and now you see real and public utility. We've been fortunate this year. You know, we received $1 million more, or did receive $1 million more property tax this year. That was pennies from heaven. Although not everybody's happy about it, but I am right now. Maybe further down, you can see that the state income tax, which is the local government fund we get from the state, and that is about what we consider. Now, the homestead and rollback, I anticipate that we will get more than 100,000 more this year from the homestead funds. And as we go on, the rest of the estimate of the revenue as normal. So with the building inspector on page, let me see, page 6, the building inspector, I talked to him about the permits being down, but he assured me that once the Sandy Acres, the last phase of Sandy Acres go through, that we will hit that estimate. So I will concur with his suggestions. And so out of the revenue estimates that I had anticipated at the beginning of the year, I'm very confident that we're going to achieve that and possibly more. Going further review of expenses, we know that the biggest expenses are people, and all our appropriations are pretty much in line with the biggest ones, of course, are safety forces. So I will direct you to that page, and that page begins with page 20. And you'll see at the bottom of the page, we're at 38%, and that is just about the overtime has been at 45%, and it's below last year in the police department. Go to further on into the page 23 with fire. Fire, you can see in overtime, that's at the bottom of the page on 23, which is 6,100, 1,200. Overtime is below last year, and it's below 50% of the budget, and I give great credit to the safety and service director for that, because that's one that is always seems to be elusive for us in terms of costs. And that is, if anybody hopefully has looked at going back to about page 29, ambulance services. I did anticipate some funds, and the safety director and he has indicated he was making arrangements on collections of ones that we had not been reimbursed for or paid. But the ambulance service so far is within what we believe we'll be able to get by fiscally responsible. So at page, if you go to page 30, at the bottom, you can see the revenue totals and show you year-to-date transactions. Now, if you take that, you can see that the city is actually in the general fund is going to be okay as long as we continue to watch our expenses. As far as that goes. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Auditor. I do apologize. I did not recognize that the treasurer was here as well. I didn't know if you wanted to add to any other revenue side or any comments at all.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, everyone. No, I just wanted to let you know I'm really happy with the Attorney General's office. As of today, the second week of July, they were able to collect from us for people who were receiving a refund from their federal or state taxes, and they were able to bring to us almost $572,000. So I'm really happy with that. And they don't charge us, exactly. So, and I just want to let you know, too, that I spoke with Judge-elect Weber today, because she'll be taking the bench the first of the year. So I always think that it's very good when new people are going to be in place to kind of put the brakes on and look at the criminal cases that I'm sending to court, seeing where we're at, how it's going, and so forth, and then seeing if there's anything that we can implement or what have you. And so she was very receivable about that. So we're going to meet right after Labor Day, you know, to see if there's anything else. But just to remind you guys that not only are we collecting in-house, the Attorney General's office is collecting for us, our collection agency is collecting for us, and then because you guys had approved it, you know, I'm going to criminal court and civil court, so it's going really well. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for that update. And then just drop that. Yes, Mr. Auditor.
Note to Mr. Thornsberry, the hospitalization fund has $1.7 million in it. Cash.
Alrighty, thank you very much. We will see if anybody on council has any questions at this point in time. If not, we will go to the audience. If anybody has any questions about the budget, any concerns, I don't see any. we'll come back to council. I know I at the last meeting I did ask if what's his name? If acting chief Failings would be able to make it, because I think there was some concern about enforcement and the PD numbers where our manpower is at. He was unfortunately not able to make it. I don't know. Part of the reason why I want to have that conversation now is just obviously as we keep going forward, I mean, we'll be getting into budget time and talking about those levels of funding. I didn't know if perhaps, not to put anybody on the spot, but if the administration wanted to have any comments on that for today. If not, that's fine. We will just continue to go forward and keep that in mind as we move past our August break and try to get into the budget season, essentially. Good? Good? Okay, sounds good. All right. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. If council doesn't have any questions, I will move on because we do have a pretty full docket. So, is everybody satisfied? I certainly appreciate it. We will call the finance meeting to a close. Thank you very much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I call the Streets and Utilities Committee to order. Madam Deputy Clerk, what is the first item on our agenda this evening?
The first item is a discussion and review of the Sewer and Water Advisory Board's May 2025 biannual report to Council. And in addition to that, Director Carbonero's submission of information related to the May 2025 SWAB report.
Thank you very much. Again, I think we all have copies of the SWAB report. We also have the Director's response to said SWAB report. My overall concern is when I read the SWAB report, I feel their frustration coming through in the report. I think they're feeling like an advisory board that's not being listened to. You know, their advice is not being taken into consideration, and I'm concerned about the future of the SWAB board because I've been on these type of boards before, and you know, when you feel like you're not getting listened to, people stop attending, people stop volunteering, etc. And we want to make sure that that's not happening. So I know the SWAB board is going to be under new leadership, but yeah, I don't know if anybody from the administration wants to start this off. If the director wants to talk about his response to the reports.
Yes, I can go. I mean, would you like me to go through the responses to each recommendation?
Yeah, if you could give us a high-level summary of the responses to the SWAB report, please.
Okay. I went through and found the recommendations for the SWAB biannual report, and number one was recommending stronger action for the contribution of stormwater into the sanitary sewer system. And as indicated, it's tough to determine how many of our homes have actually footer tiles, which are your drains along the sides of your homes that sit at the base of your basement if you have a basement, or at your crawl space. So with that said, it's undetermined how many are actually tied directly into the sanitary system, as that was the older way to do it. And the current budget under our Water Pollution Control Fund does not allow for such investigation. It is very costly and time-consuming. We are preparing what we call an SSES, which is a Sanitary Sewer Evaluation Study, and that is required under our consent decree with the US EPA. And part of that study, and a big part of that study, is to determine I&I levels as well as average dry weather flow levels in different sewer sheds of the city. Number two, it was that the city explores through the Department of BHP if any help can be given to residents. I believe in conversations with the Director of Building, Housing, and Planning, and he can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but property owners have typically decided on one project to receive assistance for, and you know they can also provide insight and just in conversation. An example of that would be like a roof, siding, things of that nature, and those are also big ticket items, so people kind of have to pick which one they want to do for their house. Number three was that equal attention be given to untreated sewage entering residents' home. is it is a big health issue and property damage issue. And as I said, I do not disagree with this statement at all. I think it is a large issue and is one reason why we are spending the dollars we are from our budget to increase the capacity as well as reduce excess I&I in the system through sewer lining. That can cause, water in basements for homes and businesses. We have seen the data at our wastewater plant. We are seeing the flows reduced during typical rainstorms. And so the work has been effective, though we still have a long way to go, which is why I've come to council on multiple occasions for WPCLF loans to increase the capacity of our pump stations, most recently Yeager, Pearl, and Tacoma. So we recognize that that is an issue, and we are actively working to find a solution and better ways to help mitigate those problems. Number 4 was that recommending that an additional duplicate bill option be more widely advertised, and we have been doing this. We have been trying to get the word out, whether it's on the bills themselves, through multiple medias, here at the committee meetings, city council, Facebook, website, etc. And then number 5 had about 8 parts, so A through H, and the following recommendations, and I'll just try to go through them in summary, that the city engineer evaluate any extension of our system, which they are included. The city engineer is included in the construction of sewers. However, per Ohio Revised Code 729.52, sewer rental revenue collected may not be used for extension of sanitary sewers in areas that are not currently unsewered by the municipality. So what that means is the city of Lorain cannot spend our revenue to extend sewers that are outside the corporate limits of Lorain. We cannot go ahead and build sewers in the township. And that typically has not happened. The sewers areas that we serve, that was all built by the county. And they come to us and they ask us if we can treat the sewage, and we then give them a letter for that approval. Part B was that sewers outside meet the same standards. That language is already included in our agreements. C is that the city engineer inspect and approve all installations and testing. Language similar to that is in our agreements in satellite communities. And we also coordinate with county engineers to complete this as well. D is that the city of Lorain retain all ownership of sewers to issue any future extensions to be evaluated and approved. We actually do not recommend, the utilities department does not like this, as we are then spending dollars outside of the city of Lorain, which is why we also just turned over a large part of our infrastructure in Hidden Valley to the county so that we didn't have to maintain it and spend those dollars outside the city of Lorain and have instead just be the treatment of that. But any sanitary sewer extensions, as I previously mentioned, within our facility planning area, also known as our FPA, which must be approved by the city of Lorain, as the treatment of such wastewater will be done so at one of the 2 wastewater treatment plants owned and operated by the city of Lorain. And as some may know, the facility planning area is overseen by NOACA, which is a state agency. F is that all fees and tap-ins, capital improvements, permits be at a cost least equal to or more than the cost within the city. This is already being implemented. Inspections of the lateral shall be carried out by the city of Lorain to ensure that they also meet standards. This language is already included in our agreements with satellite communities. G is inspections of the lateral, G, so that's already been carried out. And then H is the city should also require that someone outside the city desires sewer service that also use the city of Lorain water service extensions to accomplish, should also be borne by the developer. This is already implemented where applicable in current agreements, and we also request this in future agreements. For example, the agreement that we made with the county that came to council that included Hidden Valley and Hampshire Farms, that language was included, which is why we serve water to Hampshire Farms. So that's just my recommendations and answers, or my answers to the recommendations that the SWAB board had.
Thank you for that, Mr. Director. Anybody from council, any questions or comments? Councilwoman Spingowski.
Yeah, we have had this discussion regarding the sewer, the flooding, the sewer, and the things like that.
since I came onto council. The SWAB board was developed, and it was with Mr. Thornsberry and the mayor and I. We picked these people in that. I've gone to these meetings. I understand their feelings of frustration because they feel that all of the different suggestions that they have given have been ignored. We constantly bring things from them, or we just ignore what they're saying altogether. But we bring things for discussion, and we discuss it to death, and we never do anything about it. There have been a lot of different suggestions from this board, and they don't fail in speaking with the individual members. This is about the future of the SWAP board going forward, because they made the suggestion themselves to dissolve the SWAP board because they felt that they weren't being listened to, that they weren't being appreciated. That's why the attendance at the SWAP board meetings by the actual members is pretty poor. Because it's like they say, why should they waste their time? That's to the individual members that I've spoken to. And there's been a lot more commentary that, you know, I'm not going to go into at this point. But we keep talking about this stuff, and nothing ever seems to get done. We've got people here today. We've got a news crew here today because of the flooding. When I came onto council in 2016, what were we talking about, Mr. Chairman? We were talking about the flooding and the EPA consent decree. We built this big dig tunnel that cost us how many tens of millions of dollars with the overruns and everything. I asked at that time, was any of that going to resolve this issue so we didn't keep revisiting it? And the director at that time said, I don't know. How do we get something to resolve this? People shouldn't have to be applying based on their income to have raw sewage from going into their homes. People, I mean, we have had so much flooding. We're not getting these 100 or 500-year storms every time it rains. I've got people in the audience that every time it rains above an inch of rain, their basement floods. And they get told by their city that is supposed to be taking care of them that there's nothing we can do. We are not having all these historic, I mean, and I believe in climate change. I believe that we've got some serious, issues with the climate and everything like that, but this does not happen every time it rains. And I don't see answers. The SWAB board, the people that got on there, one of the members in her demographic, her mother floods, she'll never be able to sell her house. She floods all the time. And we have no answers how to stop it and how to prevent it. What I do see, and there's no offense intended on this, it's just a statement of fact. What I do see is a passing of the buck, basically. It's, doing anything but actually addressing the issues. And that is the response that I am getting from the residents of this city. I have forwarded this information, as I've gotten it, to the residents that have complained. I don't know what to tell them. I'm not an engineer. I don't know what to tell them on this. All I know is that what I'm seeing here, it doesn't fix their problems. And that's what we're supposed to do, is to try to address their problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Springowski. Councilwoman Duvall.
Thank you. As I was going down through this list, unless I'm mistaken, it appears to me that all of the concerns of the Schwab board, except the ownership of the sewers, have been addressed. Am I incorrect? It seems as though most of these concerns that they posited have been addressed. So I'm not understanding why they feel they aren't being listened to. Okay, now, what is I&I?
Infiltration and inflow.
Okay, all right. And when are they still doing the water meters by coming by your house with a little doohickey and checking your usage? Is that how they figure your water bill now?
Yes, we have the touch pads, which requires personnel to walk up and actually touch a pad on the side of the house. And then we have drive-bys,
Yeah.
which are more, I guess, wireless.
How much time would it add for that person to also walk around to where the gutter thing is and see if there is a connection between the gutters and the rainwater sewer? How much time would that take?
That is actually outside of their job description and would need to be negotiated with the union for that person.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm not passing the buck there, but this is where it gets difficult. Is it's hard to just put jobs on people because the union dictates a lot of what the requirements are.
Remember, a union member all my life, so I understand that. But that might be something worth exploring. And you don't have, I mean, you only have to do it once. And it would make sense to me. Next question, Mr. Next question. What is the status of House Bill 118? I know the mayor had entered some commentary, some testimony. That bill was the state was going to take away the right of cities to put liens on people's properties for their water bill. Do we know anything about the status of that?
From my understanding, is still pending in the state. I know a number of organizations that, we're actually part of one called AMWA, which is a municipal wastewater organization and they have lobbyists on our part of all the municipal wastewater agencies to handle things like this because this is a big issue.
Okay. And I know we're here to talk about the SWAB report, but part of the SWAB report talked about service to the community, and we had quite a discussion. I had a person who is a homeowner in Lorain today talk to me about her experience at the water department. And she went to make sure she had a new meter installed. And she kept getting a bill, said, you owe nothing, you owe nothing. And she said, well, I want to make sure that this bill is correct. So I'm going to go down to the water department personally and check out if this is correct. So she went down to the water department. Now, I thought we had decided in council that we're providing a service to people. When she came out of the water department, she was so frustrated because she walked up to the window. It said, use the phone. She used the phone. And when she used the phone, you got to go through that whole directory of thing. Now, this, if you want that. So she was there maybe 4 or 5 minutes just listening to directions. And her anger came from the fact that there were people sitting there. And nobody came and said to her, can I help you? And I thought we had talked about that at council. Mm-hmm. Personal service. This is a person who, unlike me, doesn't have an overdue water bill. And so I'm wondering, when do we get the idea, as people have expressed here, that we're serving the community? That builds relationships, that builds trust in the city, that we're there to really see about your needs. And I just wanted to bring that up because it just happened today. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councilwoman Devereux. Kate, did you have something? I missed you earlier. I'm sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Councilwoman, I was just going to note that the discussion about checking downspouts may be somewhat confusing the issue between sanitary and storm. Some homes, depending on their age, may have their downspouts connected to a footer tile that also connects to a sanitary discharge, right? That would be in our older neighborhoods. Our newer neighborhoods have separate storm connections, right? So it would be difficult for any city employee to know the difference unless we had information that we actually, frankly, probably don't have. We have data associated with how and what types of
connections exist in some properties, but not all properties for the city.
So how do you solve it? How do you solve that? We know it has to be solved.
Correct.
So how do we solve it?
Well, we have a program, or we had a program, called Project Dry Basement, which I think has been something that's been talked about 700 times at different discussions across the city when we have significant rain events. And, you know, ultimately the issue that we see with people's basements flooding, right, during rain events, while residents connect the streets flooding to their basements flooding, they're two completely separate systems, right? A roadway flooding has nothing to do with your basement flooding. We in the city of Lorain do not have combined sewers. So your storm sewers and roadway flooding is associated with storm sewers and roadway flooding, whereas sanitary flooding or sanitary surcharge is associated with what Joe's talking about with I&I, right? So in our older neighborhoods specifically, as I was indicating, those footer tiles are connected to sanitary, right? So we have a lot of water, rainwater specifically, that's going into our sanitary system. The way to address that is to remove that rainwater from the sanitary system. But that is likely half of our population, right, with regard to our housing stock. And it is a significantly costly endeavor for a single property owner. So there was at one point in time a program that the Project Dry Basement program was implemented as a point of sale program, and it was to be required. So when a property was sold, it would be those footer tiles would be disconnected and no longer drain into the sanitary system. There were lots of reasons that stopped, but it did. So we have had a lot of discussions recently about the resurgence of that and how we could look to implement that, but not necessarily as a requirement, right? As a program that residents could choose to participate in, that would then potentially help them out themselves. It's just unfortunately not easy to solve.
I understand that. Most problems are.
No, they're not.
Thank you, Councilwoman Duvall, and our engineer, Keats. Councilman Arroyo.
Yeah, I got a question, I guess, when it comes to our sewer and drainage. So I asked a question on the 23rd, and Mr. Vandersomen responded back since 2018 to present day that there's been $7.8 million in new water and sewer lines put specifically in South Lorain. And so when it comes to some of this drainage issues and the no flooding and basement and streets, I kind of have to disagree. Obviously, it was like May 3rd of 2014. It was the 100-year storm. 2 years ago, it was a 500-year storm. And 3 weeks ago was 1 inch of water. And so I guess when all the streets in South Lorain flooded, a lot of that, I'm pretty sure, couldn't go in the sewer system no more. So it was part of our streets. And also, specifically a corner that Mr. Vandersomen sent in a picture that he sent me with sewer lines that were done in South Lorain. Two of the corners that happen a lot is 29th and I want to say Seneca, and 30th and Seneca, and 31st Street, right in front of the first District 3 fire station. Those are drainage systems that have only street drainage just on the street and not on the curb. Now, obviously, when we get a little bit of rain, those flood just because of the way the system's set up. So with some of these suggestions, are some of the suggestions to replace those drains, because that's also a main issue when it comes to some of these storms. But I just, I find it hard, and I got a lot more questions, and it'll go to the next series. But you brought that up. Mm-hmm. But when we're talking about our sewer system, that's a lot of money for South Lorain from 2018 to present day, $7.8 million. And since then, we've had 2 major storms, I guess you could count, in the city. So I just kind of like, I guess, a little bit more insight on our spending of that. If we're going to spend that much money, why are we continually having these century storms every couple of years?
And I'm gonna just hold that thought. Again, I think your comments were spot on. I'm just gonna hold them for the second discussion, if we could for now. Let's get through the SWAB stuff specifically, and then we'll move on to item B, which would be more of the flooding related to your ward in South Lorain, for sure. Any other members of council? Any members of the public wishing to speak about SWAB? Again, hold on to South Lorain or other flooding for now, but SWAB, Ms. McGannon, please. Let's just slide the button up, yes.
Dan McGannon, 1731 Gettysburg Drive, Lorain. Mr. Chairman, members of committee, just a couple of comments about the SWAB. We do know the people that have the problems. Back from 1988 to about 2002, I had the opportunity to work with the call guy from the sewer department. I'd work with him on weekends, and I would go out to the houses that had the problems. And I'm making the assumption, which is not a good thing to do, that we have better record keeping now than when I was doing this back in 1988 through 2002. But what we did, we would go to the home, we'd look at the house, we'd go out and we would determine whether or not the sewer was overcharged or it was a problem in our line. We do that by opening manholes, and you can tell. They would go back and they'd write a report of that home. So there's a record of every home that had a documented basement flooding. We know that. We know them, and I'm assuming they still do that. That is item one to fix the problem. Those are the people that we would put in the check valve, help them finance the sump pump. Then we would not have the basement flooding to the same people over and over and over again. That was the plan. That's what Project Dry Basement said. During one of our SWAB meetings, Mr. Carbonaro, he came up with the idea to go to BPH. He also came up with another idea, which we didn't include in the report because we keep referring back to Project Dry Basement, and it's in there, where the utilities department would finance the sump pump, the people that have to pay for the sump pump and for their tile removal, and that would go on their water bill for over 10 years. That was a great idea, Mr. Carbonaro. We really liked that. We thought that the BPH was just another alternative. We wouldn't have to always use utilities department money. So those were good things. Checking out the actual houses that are tied into the footer tile is a little bit more difficult. The inspection is super simple. If you have a basement and you don't have a sump pump, your footer tile is tied into the sanitary sewer. Simple to do, except you have to go in the house to do it. People, I guess, don't have to let you in the house, of course. If they wanted to participate, they would let you in and let you do the inspection. So that's what I want to say about that portion of the report. The other thing that I was really happy to read Mr. Carbonaro's letter about all the things, this was never brought up at a SWAB meeting, the information was not given to us, but all the things that the city engineer is going to do that we want them to do. It was all great. The problem is it's written down, but does it happen? I don't know that. I asked Mr. Vanderson today about the subdivision that's going in outside the city. Do you have plans? He says no. He asked me where it was tying into. So I didn't have plans either. But it's not tying in. He asked me if it was tying in by the trailer court. I said, no, I don't think so. I think it's tying in out by where Apple's grocery store is. So he has not reviewed the plans, doesn't know what's on them, doesn't know how many houses we're talking about. If he did, that's a good thing. That's all we're asking for. Have him take a look at it, evaluate it, because we know that our sanitary sewer system is overloaded, because if there wasn't, people wouldn't be getting sewage in the basement. We had a citizen come, which, Mary, you talked about it. Her mom gets flooded every single day. Now, what she told the board was nothing to do with subdivisions outside the city. She told the board, she read in the newspaper that they were going to do these big projects in South Lorain, adding homes, adding these things. So I'm in South Lorain and said, my sewer doesn't work. It overflows. We're going to add more to it. So I'm concerned about that. So we're concerned about it too. I'm not on the SWAB board, but we're concerned about it because she's right. And all we want is the city engineer to take a look at the plan and say, no, this isn't going to affect that. That is good. We don't know that the subdivision is bad. We think it's good. We like the extra revenue. So we're not against the project. We just want the proper people to look at it. And I believe Auditor Kazera, you know what happens when we don't issue permits. That revenue doesn't come here and then I get it later on, we always get less. So, you know, we're just concerned about those things. And Project Dry Basin was never implemented, so it was never canceled, okay? The houses that are tied into the sanitary sewer in Lorain are houses built prior to 1956 that have a basement. So those houses, unless they've had a basement remodel, are tied into the sanitary sewer, which is a lot of houses, that's true. Absolutely. It's easy to spot, but hard to document. So that's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. McGannon. Anybody else from the public wishing to speak about SWAB?
Hello, I'm Carrie Buckley, a member of the SWAB board. I just had, well, we as a board had a few concerns about the future of the SWAB board that you had mentioned earlier, Chairman. And as far as some of the recommendations that we felt have landed on deaf ears, two of the biggest ones so far that we've been wrestling with is the hours of the utilities department. That's been an issue since COVID. We're 5 years post-COVID. We still haven't figured that out to bring it back to where it was before. And also the summer discount program, the water summer discount program. That's been brought up in a presentation to the council. Council's discussed it. We've discussed it multiple times within the board. And to my knowledge, that ordinance has not been relooked at. And it really needs to be, because we're actually paying more now with the new summer discount program than we were with the prior. So that's a big one, and that affects everybody in the city. That's not just a few people who fill pools. That affects everybody in the city. The other issue that we have with the feasibility of the SWAB board is we have a real problem with the leaders who are able to make the decisions do not attend these meetings. Out of the last 4 meetings that we've had, the safety service director has missed all 4, and the utilities director has missed 3 out of the 4. So it's very hard as a board to have discussions if the key people who are making the decisions are not there. So then we rely on back and forth, waiting for emails, and it just keeps continuing over and over. So I really think we need to have a hard discussion about the feasibility of the future of the board, because I'm an action-oriented person. I can only speak for myself. I like to get it on a list, take care of it, and move on. We're talking 4 years later about the hours, about summer discounts, about attendance. So I really think it needs some serious discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for serving on the board. Anybody else from the public? Anybody else from council on SWAB board? All right, I'll wrap SWAB board with some concluding thoughts. I think I would hope I'm not putting words into Mayor Bradley's mouth. I believe the mayor is 100% committed to keeping the SWAB board around. I know it was a piece of legislation that I was particularly proud of passing. I think the mayor, when he first started, was particularly proud that we put this piece of legislation together, and we certainly don't want to see the SWAB board dissolve. With that being said, I think from an administrative standpoint, from a council standpoint, we definitely need to recommit and show that board our commitment, which, as Ms. Buckley just said, definitely starts with attending the meetings. I know Councilwoman Sporgowski has been very attentive to these meetings, and I appreciate her for doing that. The other thing I would really like to see the SWA board, I don't want to say pivot, but maybe pivot's the right word. I think, yeah, they've tackled some smaller issues, summer discount, customer service, the window being open, those kind of things. They also spent a lot of time, I think, tackling big issues like where to build the water treatment plant and should we merge with another city, you know, some of these really big issues. I would love to see the SWA board focus on trying to create a program to help people in need keep their water on. That seems like something that you know, I think is very feasible for the board to achieve. I can't see, you know, I can't see anybody saying no to, hey, the SWA board recommends that we do this, and this to help people afford their water. I mean, who's going to say no to helping people keep their water on, right? I mean, it's a necessity. I know just from going around to places like you go to the drive-thru at Taco Bell, and people are like, hey, do you want to round up to help this cause? Like, why can't we have a program where people can opt to round up their water bill? If my water bill is, I don't know, $138.50, why can't I opt to round up 50 cents to contribute to a fund to help people in need? You know, there's a lot of different things out there that we could possibly look at doing to raise money, to put money into an account to help people with their water bills. So I'd love to see the SWA board try to tackle that particular issue. I know there's a lot of help for residents out there. You know, there's help for heat. You got HEAP. You got all these other organizations that seem to be able to help people in need to be able to, you know, pay a high electric bill or pay a high gas bill, but there's nothing out there to help people pay a water bill and keep their water from getting shut off. So that's what I would like to see the future SWA board try to tackle. And again, on our end, I think we need to do a better job of making sure that we're attending these meetings and showing our commitment. So, Mr. President.
Thank you. Through the chair, council, members of the public. Mr. Thorsbury, you said it many times about the SWA board. These are volunteers. They don't get paid. I know the mayor appoints them with approval from council, but as long as this board has been here, we have heard many times, many meetings, a lot of frustration, and I understand it because I served on boards myself, pro bono if you want to call it, volunteering my time and efforts, trying to do the right thing, but it just comes to a point where it seems like you're spinning your wheels. And I've heard this from individual members on the board. You've heard it also. Council has also. So once again, council, as you said, we passed that legislation. All we do is legislate and appropriate. That's what we do. It's up to the administration, whoever they have on their staff. In this case, we're talking the water department, to implement it. We can voice all our opinions just like SWA does, and once again, I know a lot of people have donated their time and efforts, and I've heard a few of them say, you know, I just keep talking to the wall. Nothing's going on, so you got a choice. I could do something else, really, or keep talking to the wall. So I can see the frustration, and we've heard this many times on council from our council members, and you've held quite a few meetings to your credit to address this. But unless it starts at the top, the administration, the people in charge, we're not going to get anything done. They can make all the recommendations they want to us, and that's the way I see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Auditor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Thorsbury. I serve on that board, and I understand their frustrations because I've experienced that too, especially on your office hours. I think it should be open 8:30 to 4:30. the window at least open. You know, the person's right there. There's no reason we can't implement that. And also the summer discount. My wife waters more than anybody. And you got to get the discount with your water. Not should give a summer discount to everybody. You don't water and use more water, you shouldn't get a discount. And that's where the original design was, to help people who garden, people who took care of things. And so I'm tired of paying more in the summer, you know, than I used to. Not just kidding, but I think those two should be implemented by the administration certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Auditor. With that, we will wrap up the first part of our meeting, which was item A, the swap. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, go ahead, sir.
So as far as the summer discount is concerned, that's council action, not the administration. So council wants to change that, change it. And the other thing is, if we want to go into every residence and put in a sump pump where there's no sump pump, we want to put in footer tile so that it's not connected to the sanitary sewer, let's appropriate the money and we'll do it. So you know, it's not just the administration, it's also city council has to also appropriate the money. Now, if you want to put on a program that says, well, we will let our citizens volunteer to have a sump pump put in and let them pay for it over 10 years, well, then let's put that program into effect. But that's council action also. All we can do is follow the legislation that the council gives us to do these things. And we will certainly follow your guidance if that's what you want to do. Now, there was I guess there was a proposal for some kind of a dry basement program many, many years ago. Obviously, it was talked about but never implemented. Now, I'm not sure why it wasn't implemented, but probably because it needed some council action. It needed council to set up a program where people could take out a loan from the city for 10 years and pay it through their water bill. And then people, if they're not satisfied with the way the water is draining in their basement, they at least had the opportunity to address that issue through a program that's been created by the city. So I welcome a program being committed by the city. And, you know, and I want to say this also, the last SWAB board meeting, Mr. Carrion was there, Mr. Carbonaro was there, I was there. So if somebody says they weren't at the last 4 meetings, I know they were at the last meeting. So maybe the person who said they weren't at the last 4 meetings wasn't at the last meeting. So.
Last 5, I apologize.
All right, so they were there at the last meeting. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I would add to, I think we could reach out to Mayor George in Lakewood. I think Lakewood just kind of started a trial Project Dry Basement program. It'd be interesting to see how their trial is going and if that could guide us in the creation of a program. Because I know it's about probably 2 years ago is when they were starting this trial program. I don't know if it's going to be like 10 basements or 20 basements or something like that. So that could be a good source. Mr. Carrion, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair to members of council and the public. Just wanted to add a few comments to the statements that the mayor mentioned. I believe it's important with this board, just like it is for any other board that the city engages with, is to understand what the expectations are on both sides. You know, I have served on many boards myself for 30 years. And if we do not have a realistic set of expectations, all we're going to do is sit here and be frustrated with each other. Because there is so much funding that can be applied. There are funding that we could charge. There are new programs that we can create. A lot of those programs could come back as a cost to the property owner in some form. But if we do not discuss that and we're just discussing all of the needs without the way to pay for it, then we're going to be frustrated. Because we were just not that long ago talking about a potential budget shortfall. Last year, budget discussions were predicting a $4 million deficit. We have been fortunate enough to manage and work with our departments to keep costs down, maintain overtime, be efficient. understanding where the budget can lead to. But anything that we discuss here is going to have that type of impact. And I'm not saying that it's not needed. It is needed. A lot of these programs are needed. But we need to start looking at ways, what are the programs? What are programs that will require cosmetic action to be approved? And what is the financial impact on everyone? Those that have the financial wherewithal to pay for it, and for those that do not. In what areas does the city create a homestead program to assist those that are elderly that have financial strengths? Okay, so there are a lot of things that we need to sit down and discuss, but if we do not have an understanding in terms of what are the key priorities, what are the potential costs, the impact, we're going to struggle. Now, I just want to make a statement in terms to the board member. The city is committed. The administration is certainly committed. My parents have been in the same home for 35 years, and they probably have had, at the very least, 20 times that their basement has flooded, including 3 weeks ago, where I just replaced their appliances in the basement because they took a dive. So we feel it as well. But we need to understand what is the cost, what is the process to move forward. I will make sure that I attend these council swap meetings. I did have my assistant assigned, so it's not that I'm just neglecting to not go, but we will make sure that we can sit down and have the conversations. I know our director, since the last time that we met, for a discussion with the mayor, made the decision to keep the windows open in the lobby. That was a point of contention before, that it was open just in the morning and not in the afternoon. Maybe Joe, you can address that, but they are open, to my understanding. The issues that the councilman brought up in terms of personal service, that's important to us too. And we want to address that because we want people to be treated with respect. Everyone. We are service oriented in anything that we do. I know we are. And we want to make sure that everyone follows that. So, we understand the concerns. We understand the hardship. We want to work with you. We want to work with council to make sure that we find a viable solution. We're not ignoring it. By all means, we're not.
Yes, Mr. Director.
Just one thing, and Josh, I have looking at other cities and looking at other communities, it's kind of a catch-22. Lakewood, for example, if they want to implement a project, a project of their own separate system, that's great, especially if they use their own funds. I would just know that if they do their own funds, they are charging $10.62 for 100 cubic feet. We charge $6.48. We have a higher poverty limit. We have to be more mindful about the affordability of our residents. So there is that cost. You're walking on a fine line where I would love to do everything, but I also would like people to be able to afford their bills. So that's just something a little bit more mindful, especially when you have a rate, you're a rate base like Lorain does. So just want to put that out there, that when you start looking at the other grass, it's not always greener.
Thank you. So, and while you got the mic there, so to clarify, one, the window's open. And
yes, the window is open. And as I mentioned before, the window is there for cash payments or for cashier payments. The window is there for people to help. Yes, you can see into the back, and there are people sitting there, but not doing nothing. They are there on the phones because we still get a lot of phone calls. We just don't want somebody sitting at the window the entire time because we don't have a dedicated call-in number to there. But if someone calls and asks for help, someone will walk up to the window to assist that person. So the window is there.
And also, sir, while you got the mic, obviously I think we need to be aware of the financial impact. If you can't provide it now, could you please provide to council what would be the financial impact of returning to the previous summer discount?
It would definitely be a drop in our current revenues, which our current revenues have for the past couple of years still been below estimates. I believe when we have sent the ordinance to council, it's hard to quantify because you don't know who's receiving it and who's not receiving it because it's not something we're able to track in our billing system. But it's about $500,000 a year. And the new program is available to everyone in the city if you're an owner occupied. It's not just if you use so much water. The old program was based off of a threshold limit, based off your average daily uses off a certain number of months. The new program is everyone receives a 10% discount. Period. So that's we wanted to make it more equitable, even if you don't happen to have an irrigation system, which is why we went the route we did. We wanted to expand it to a larger swath of population in the city of Lorain, because a lot of areas don't have irrigation systems, but they do wash their cars in a lot more in the summer. So someone that only uses one more extra consumption in the summer, they're still going to receive that summer discount, whereas under the old program they wouldn't. So that's kind of where the thought process was when we sent that down to council. We wanted to expand it and make it more equitable, because typically where you see irrigation systems are in higher dollar areas. That's who typically can afford the irrigation systems to be installed with their homes. And we have brought it to council and this committee multiple times that if you do have an irrigation system, we highly, highly recommend you get an irrigation meter, because then you will have a water-only account and you will only pay for the water. And we will not charge you a monthly fee on that meter. You just have to purchase the meter from us.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Again, just to clarify for council, so it's going to cost almost $500,000 to return to the previous summer discount program, and instead of all residents getting a small discount, just residents who are using more water in the summertime would get a larger chunk of a discount, if that makes sense. But ultimately, it would be a financial impact to the budget of the water department, roughly $500,000. Councilman Henley.
Thank you, Mr. Thornsberry, and I'm not sure what all this falls under, but one point that, first of all, I want to thank Mr. McGann and Mrs. Buckley for their service on this board. They both have great minds and good ideas, and I appreciate them. Anyhow, that being said, I think one thing that needs to be made clear to a lot of our citizens when they do have this backup, that this is sanitary sewer water. Even though it appears clean, it is so diluted that it looks clean, but this is not clean stormwater that's coming up into your basement. And a lot of people think that, and yeah, so that needs to actually be out there. The other thing is, and this is way off the wall, but everything is negotiable, and in thinking about the insurance claims with these backups on some of these older homes, and you're right, I'm thinking 1960 and before, because I have one of those 100-year-old houses where I've replaced everything. But when people have to make insurance claims, and I just wonder if after 1 or 2 or 5 of them, because of the extensive damage, and maybe Mayor Bradley, he's an attorney, I don't know how this works, but it might be possible to negotiate with an insurance company to pay that cost of perhaps putting in a backflow diverter and a sump pump. And I'm just throwing it out there, just a thought for somebody whose mind is better than mine. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Henley. Councilman Nutt.
Thank you, sir. Through the chair. I was just going to comment, but I believe the mayor kind of hit the nail on the head, and then Mr. Kirian kind of really went into the details of it. I think it is incumbent upon council to come up with an actual solution for this, like that dry basement program, but obviously my concern would be the financing end of it. I did see Mr. Kuznar in the back row. Perhaps he's the guy kind of leaning on for, perhaps there's some federal funds. I'm not saying that maybe we can look into it. Perhaps there's some programs, some government programs, some federal funds, something that we could bring to the city of Lorain, or perhaps, if that's more in the administration's ballpark to try to find those funds to help us finance that, because obviously the budgetary impact of a program like that, I mean, it's very true. I mean, a lot of our older houses do drain into the Sandy, and they shouldn't. And I mean, you're looking between $5,000 and $10,000 a wall, depending on your linear feet, to properly fix that. That's a huge expense for our residents. So yes, even if it is something along the lines of pushing those costs on the roads, right down the road, if we can tie it to the residents' taxes and they pay a small amount every year for 10, 15 years, Unfortunately, the city will have to foot that bill in the meantime. But yes, I 100% agree. It is incumbent upon us. Let's try to come up with a solution for that. If it is some sort of thing that another municipality is already implemented, this dry basement program I was not aware of. If it's something along those lines of going in and any resident who has a flood in their basement and they want to call and we come out, take a look and assess and say, hey, this is how much it costs. Here's a list of contractors. Call them. It'll be applied to either your taxes or there's a federal grant program that'll pay for X amount of dollars, 50%, 6%, something along those lines. I think that's something we absolutely should be looking into and see what we can do. But it is definitely, in my opinion, really kind of hinges on the finance side of that. So if there are any federal funds, please let's try to find them. If not, let's see what we could do for some sort of financing for our citizens. Thank you. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Nutt. Councilman Royal, light's still on, or did you want to wait for the next one?
I know you are. I know you are.
Councilwoman Swingowski.
Boy, you opened the door on that one. Yeah, I was at that last meeting, and the meeting was supposed to start at 6 o'clock, and it took until 6:40 to be able to get a quorum to start that meeting because we were missing people. And we need to address these things. I have a sump pump. 2 years ago, when we flooded, and it was the first time I can remember flooding. We've actually bought a battery backup for the sump pump, but it wouldn't have done any good. Our sump pump, and we got a Kenco industrial one. We have a really good one. It couldn't keep up with the amount of water that was coming in. Turns out that our neighbors down at one of the intersections had really blocked their drains and everything with trash and grass and everything. I would love to be able to tag every landscaping company in this city that blows the grass into the streets so that they don't have to rake it, because that goes into our sewers and it just creates such a problem. But I wanted to thank Mr. Carbonaro. That had been a big bone of contention between us, and I did want to thank him for opening that window up. I will let my residents that are computer illiterate and everything like that, but know how to work a telephone, that call me about it, I will let them know that you have addressed that. Thank you very much. That is the type of service that I'm talking about, and that is what we need to be offering to our community. I also wanted to thank you because you went out of your way to make sure you were at that meeting and coming in for that, and but it did take us a while to get that quorum there because it isn't important. But I also have to go on record here and very publicly thank Pat McGannon. He gave inspired leadership to that SWAB board, and I think that his presence will be sorely missed. I'm really regretting the fact that he will not be on that board anymore because of his expertise that is immatchable for this city and what he has done for the residents of the city. And I would like to thank Carrie Buckley for being, as always, at every meeting, very outspoken. It took her a couple of meetings to find her way and everything like that to get up the courage to speak, but she has been very vocal on behalf of the residents of this city ever since then. You're right. The council president's right. This is an unpaid position, and these people give up their evening for this. Me, I get to sit in the audience there in shorts and a t-shirt and bring my knitting and take notes in that. So it's easy for me because I can make the decision whether or not I want to go to that meeting. But they are there for every single meeting. I think it's only been through emergencies that those two specifically have not been at a meeting. So I wanted to thank them on that. We've got, the mayor's right. We've got to come up with the answers on this. We've got to stop talking about it. Every council has done this. It's what former councilman and former safety service director Dan Given used to say. We are really good at kicking that can down the road. And I think we've run out of road. So we need to do something. I know that in the early 90s, my in-laws, their house was built in 1959, so we weren't sure. But it cost them, in the early 1990s, it cost them over $12,000 to go and to untie the footer tiles, to put in the check valve and everything like that because of flooding in their basement. And I'm still never entirely sure when my son, if that basement is going to flood. But it cost a lot of money then, but it was a very necessary thing. And we're all going to, the residents and the city, we're all going to have to work together and come up with some creative ways, thinking outside the box or what have you, in order to get this done. Change is a very difficult thing to accept, and it's the thing that people fear the most. And I think that maybe we need to do a better job of explaining the summer discount program, and maybe hopefully people will understand it better. We have a lot of amateur gardeners that are really good at what they do in the city, especially in the older areas. And we need to, and they're also doing it to supplement their budgets. So we need to make sure that we are assisting them as best we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Smigowski. Councilwoman Kempton.
Yes, through the chair, I just have a couple quick questions. For the summer discount program, do residents have to sign up for that, or is that applied automatically?
It's applied automatically. Okay. The only thing they have to sign up for is, or send us an application for, is the large discount for filling a pool.
Okay, so they would have to contact you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the windows are open till 4:30? 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock, okay. And I do also want to thank the SWA board. I've been there many times, and I believe that they've worked very hard. We need to do a better job of listening, but I do thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Kempton. Seeing no more lights, we are going to shift gears here. We're going to end the SWAB discussion, and we're going to move on to item B on our agenda. If our deputy clerk will read the caption.
The next item is a discussion regarding flooding in the city, specifically in South Lorain.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With that, I will first go to either Kate or the director, whoever wants to speak on the topic. Probably the director first. I know you sent us a lot of documents related to this. If you could take us through those documents, please, sir.
Yes, I put together a memo. That's I guess section B, the June 17th, 2025 storm information that provides some rain gauge data from our rain gauges at Pearl and Tacoma, as well as just a narrative of what we were trying to do throughout that day. I also provided in section C our City Works, which is our asset management program, and that is our closed work order list beginning when the program went online for the sewer department in 2023. And that just gives you an idea of the work, the addresses, and the locations that what we're doing on a daily basis. Those are all the work orders that have been closed since then. I want to say there's over about 400. And then D is our EPA reports that we submit annually, that we're required to submit annually for the EPA, and that has a lot of information. It has each month, and it's sanitary, storm, CCTV, laterals that are repaired, laterals that are TV'd, storm that were repaired, catch basins, sanitary main lines that were repaired. So it's a lot of information. I can tell you, I'm sure Kate can corroborate that since we've had a new superintendent over at sewer, we've done a lot of storm. She's actually yelled at me a couple times about doing too much storm. We've been trying to find a lot of these issues. The crossovers, which are the pipes that run between two catch basins. I'm sure everybody remembers when we had the dig up tower right near Ashland. We had a crossover there that was an issue. And doing the inspections of these catch basins and CCTVing and cleaning them and jetting them is where we find them, but they can be costly. Catch basins that are in the street, we replace with concrete. They're about $4,000 or $5,000. And so we're spending that every time we dig up a catch basin. We're trying to make sure we do it right, which is why we get a lot of the complaints, and we do log those. And we are mindful of where they're at, and we're trying to hit the worst ones first that are going to be directly impactful to the community. I know Josh sends me one, I think, every week. But we do keep it. We do have a nice, robust list of those, and we are trying to do our best on attacking where we're at. I know one thing, and Councilman Arroyo, we've discussed it a couple times in South Lorain, and Kate, you can jump in. It's just it's a unique situation because of where the catch basins lie. A lot of those lie on intersections. There's not a lot of catch basins in the middle of the roadways, and those are some large blocks, especially when you go from block to block. And so, that's where you get a lot of the street flooding, which can be an issue. And so we're trying to figure out a way with Kate, with engineering, to figure out if there's better ways that we can do it. Is it adding more infrastructure? Is it, maybe additional pipes, what we need to do, or just more aggressive cleaning? So we are aware of the situation. We're doing our best to figure out what is actually the most possible.
Kate, did you want to add anything?
Are there specific questions that folks have, whether that be public or council?
I think in general, Kate, before I turn it over to council, I know Councilman Arroyo is ready to go here. We spent $7 million on improvements in South Lorain, and yes, we understand when we hit these 100-year storms, and everybody floods. South Lorain, the street pictures I'm seeing on social media and such, it's getting substantial flooding on a 10-year storm. So even though we spent all this money, we're still having this problem. What's the cause?
So the funds that have been expended on the sanitary sewer system and the water distribution system, not the storm sewer system, right? Again, in the city of Lorain, we have two separate sewer systems. We have a storm sewer system that carries clean water that comes down via precipitation or car washing or lawn watering, right? Anything that produces runoff into the roadway that's intercepted by catch basins, that water flows untreated to a local waterway and discharges out into that waterway. We also have a sanitary sewer system, which is a system that Joe's folks in the sewer department treat, right? So that water is gray water and black water that has human contact, that is from sinks, showers, plumbed fixtures, right? So the improvements that have been made in South Lorain have been made to the sanitary sewer system. And Joe might be more appropriate to answer the questions as to why that was done. But this is an old system, right, in South Lorain, and there is a lot of I&I. And one of the reasons that this is done is to try to help limit that I&I, right, the amount of infiltration that we're getting through those pipes. So Joe, do you want to speak any more to that? Or?
The reason we focused a lot of our efforts on South Lorain is from the original, the most recent SSES, or Sanitary Sewer Evaluation Study, that was performed back in 2011, I believe. And that provided a heat map of where our largest areas of high I&I were contributing. And they focused mostly on South Lorain, which is why we focused our lining efforts there, as well as a small section of East Lorain, which is also why we focused a section over there 1 year. So we're trying to really target those high I&I areas, and that's also why we want to enter into another SSES, and we're going to go out to RFP this year to kind of re-up that study, because right now it's 14 years old. So that's a long way out. We've done a lot of lining. We've seen some impact at the wastewater plant. Our bypasses are down at the plant. So we want to see, where else we need to redirect these efforts, because, to be completely honest, I don't want to stop lining. We have seen very positive results from this. One area is East Erie. That's a very deep sewer. That's a very costly sewer. And I'm sure if you've driven up and down it the last year or so, you've seen a truck out there in the morning. We're lining laterals. We're trying to find laterals that are, have to be repaired, or they're ready to be lined. And every time we dig up that street, it's about $20,000. Because some of those we can't get to. We don't have the equipment to get to it, and it's unsafe. And we don't want to put our employees in an unsafe situation. So we contract those deeper digs out. So that's why we're redirecting our efforts to lining to figure that out, and why we did it in South Lorain as well. Because even in those alleyways, we're looking at 15 to 20 feet deep. And we found out, especially during that rainstorm, we were trying to do a repair on a collapsed sanitary sewer that we discovered because, a home was emergency backup. We went out there and we were chasing it the entire length of the alley, and we had to eventually bring in a contractor emergency repair that so that we could get people back in sanitary service during that rainstorm. So there's, that's why we directed our efforts where we have so far, and we want to continue to do so.
Thank you. I will open it up to Councilman Arroyo.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate, first of all, Safety Service Director Carry on. Probably within, I was in Ashtabula when I first started getting calls. Within 90 minutes, I made it back to Lorain, and by 4:15, Safety Service Director was already on the street, checking out drainage. We're looking at some of the areas, and I know since the storm, a lot has been done, but I have a lot of questions concerning previous. So I sent my first email on the 20th, and I asked, what is our policy when catch basins are inspected? Specifically, what is the rotation in South Lorain catch basins being inspected and cleaned? Question number 2, from the year 2020, it says 2000, but actually meant 2020, until today, can you please provide a list of all the sewer repairs, sewer line replacements, catch basin replacements? Question number 3 was, from the year 2020, until today, can you please provide when South Lorain catch basins were cleaned and where they provided any documentation to support this? I didn't really, I probably sounded like a jealous, crazy girlfriend because 3 days later I sent another email and I didn't realize that Mr. Cabanero was on vacation. And I sent another email basically asking the same questions. I appreciate Maggie and Bree because basically they forwarded the questions for me. And that's when I got the documentation from Mr. Vandersummen stating that we spent $7.8 million in South Lorain in those systems. But I still didn't really get answers to my questions until July 7th of 2025. And I'll read the responses and questions, and then I'll go a little bit more into some of the data that was sent with the EPA inspections and some of the other questions that I have. On the 7th of July, I asked, can I get a copy of what streets were swept by the street department, what drains were covered, were cleaned off, did any of the sewer lines need to be unclogged? Basically the response was, and I appreciate it, it's by the street department. I still haven't received any of those answers from our street department, how often our streets are swept and cleaned. Then I asked Ms. Cabanero, any sewers that were found damaged? He stated no, none was found. However, heavy deposit of grease were detected during operations of the sanitary sewer. I go to the list that you sent us that you stated that were closed, and maybe you can put a little bit more to this. One of the areas that was highlighted was the Steel City Bar on the 1700 block, which their address is 1766 East 28th Street, and El Centro, which is on the corner of 28th and Pearl, that they also got a few feet of water in their basement this time, as they got at least 5 feet of water in 2023, and probably a whole bunch of water in 2014. But it states on this list that you said that was closed that 1748 and 1777 East 28th Street were cleaned. So my question going to that piece, when they're cleaned, is there a camera run through the system?
Yes, so we perform cleaning. It provides us the ability to put our camera in. If we put our camera in before we clean, the deposits of grease or calcium or debris actually would impede the camera and sometimes get it stuck. So that's why we go through and we jet actually at the same time too. So we'll actually pull the jet through and the camera will be following behind it so that we can get a better idea so it's more actively clean. So that's why typically you see the same areas, CCTV and clean.
So since the storm has happened, I'm pretty sure both of those drains have been spray painted, documented, probably for a work order to be fixed.
Mm-hmm.
I guess in those, I don't know, was it 13 days? Have both of those lines broke in those 13 days?
Not that I'm aware of.
So I guess the question is when they were looking at, did they miss it? When they put the camera in, did they miss that the line possibly was broken and they didn't see it? The reason I ask is the bar is 1766.
Mm-hmm.
about 20 feet, 30 feet east and 20 feet, 30 feet west, there's two drainage systems that me and Mr. Carrion went and looked ourselves. There was grass in one, and there was the bottom of a car piece in the other one. Obviously, that probably didn't help the drainage system. But at the same time, since the storm, they've both been spray painted for probably to be repaired, is what I'm expecting.
So what was found was that it was corrugated pipe, and typically that corrugated pipe can fail over time, so we've taken the decision to go ahead and just replace the corrugated pipe.
So were there any basins around 28th Street that were damaged or broken at the time of the storm?
No. We didn't find any impediments that resulted in the flooding of the streets. So the flooding receded once there was enough capacity in the system. We didn't find any blockages that would have caused the excess flooding. We did find older pipe that we made the decision to go ahead and replace because it's corrugated, and we typically like to get that old corrugated pipe out of the system because it can fail, and we don't want it to fail during a time like that.
Next question I ask, what is our city policy schedule when catch basins are inspected? Specifically, what is the rotation in South Lorain's catch basins of being inspected? We clean the city 4 to 5 times, 4 to 5 year rotational basis. South Lorain was targeted in 2023, and areas of concern or known issues such as heavy grease are addressed regardless of each year. So when you came in 2023, obviously my first time on council, I seen the department remove wood and water pipes. As I sat down with some of the guys that were actually on the 2500 block of East 34th Street that were addressing the broken line that you're speaking about in the alleyway. They showed me some water lines. They showed me some of their inspection. Is there any more wood and water pipes in South Lorain? I mean, that's a legit question. I mean, our city is what?
In South Lorain?
That's almost 250 years.
From my understanding, we haven't found any recently in South Lorain. The last wood and water pipe we pulled out, I think, was in Central Lorain somewhere, and that was a couple of years ago. There is still wooden water lines in areas that we just haven't touched. When we don't get breaks, we don't get leaks. With that pipe under pressure, it's, you kind of when you start pulling up dirt and pulling up rock, it can actually cause bigger issues. And not to bring up a bad subject, but we're kind of learning that over there now off of Longbrook. Sorry, we're learning it over off of Longbrook currently in Yorktown. So it's tough. Water lines are difficult because you can't really get in and inspect them like you can sewers. Sewers, you can get in, you can put a camera in, you can block flows. With water, because it's under pressure, it's harder. You don't want to depressurize a system because then you can actually cause more health issues. So we try not to do that at all, which is why we repair a lot of our stuff under pressure to make sure we only have to do precautionary boil advisories. But from my understanding, there is no, we haven't found any water lines recently. But as you know, when we start digging up stuff, it's interesting what we find underneath the ground.
And when it comes to picking a hot spots, how often are you in South Lorain?
A lot. We're in South Lorain a lot, and Pearl is one of those hot spots. That's a known, it's a larger elliptical sewer, so it's not round, it's kind of oval shaped or egg shaped. And we actually didn't line Pearl because of the cost of those brick elliptical sewers. But we did do all the alleys, but Pearl, we get grease deposits. So we are in South Lorain quite a bit after we do our rotations to go through and just clean to make sure these areas that we have known grease deposits are cleaned. Catch basins, areas that we know we have bad catch basins, we get a lot of garbage, been a lot of blockages. That's one area we check. Not to pick on Josh, but 40th and Stanford, that's a known area. That's a spot where there's one catch basin at the end of a road, and basically everything sheet flows down Stanford to one catch basin at 40th. So those kind of areas are areas that we try to focus on, that we put on a list. And before storms, you'll see a lot of trucks out, and it just doesn't look like we're driving around, but we're trying to check on catch basins and check on areas that we know we might have issues.
So is that 2 times a month, average, 3 times a month? I'm looking for more of a number. I understand what you're saying. But
okay. It varies. I can't give you an exact number. It really varies on what the weather's going to do. You know, during drier seasons, once we complete areas, we're going to go back through other areas. But when we get a lot of rainstorm, like we know rain's coming Wednesday, and it's probably going to rain through Saturday. We're going to be out. We're going to be checking those hot spots to make sure that the system's clear and we're not going to have issues.
All right. I got a couple more. Okay, just a couple more. Well, I want to know because listen. For the last 250 years, South Lorain has been the foundation of the city of Lorain besides Charleston. You understand what I'm saying? What Mr. Thornsberry's ward is to the city now, West South Lorain. You know what I mean? There'd be no Lorain if it wasn't for the steel mill and the shipyard. The reason the houses are so big on 31st and 30th Street is because of the steel mill. So we understand our side of the town is old, but at the same time, it sucks to hear Mr. Carrion's parents that are 90 plus years old, basements flooded 20 plus times the last 20 years. Or I just got a picture from a resident on 29th and Seneca. Obviously her drainage is a little bit different because there's no drain on the curb. So is that something that we're going to address to move forward? So 29th and 30th doesn't flood. Even in front of El Centro, there into the entranceway, there's only a street curb. A street drain, but not a drain on the curb. Those are issues, obviously. I've been asking for 3 weeks, what is our policy for the street cleaning? And I still haven't received an answer. So it's not like I'm just trying to be petty and a pain in somebody's ass. This is serious business. These residents of South Lorain, residents of the city of Lorain that are struggling because their basement continues to flood. They got to worry about, can I go buy something that my house really needs, or do I got to pay to repair my basement again? Understand what I'm saying? $7.8 million is a lot of money. And so I understand that we're trying to oblige by what the EPA is asking us. And I understand that you get a 2-inch pipe, and then you got a 4-inch and 6-inch. I understand that's a lot of pressure. So I guess the real question is, rather than going from this side to that side to this side, when are we going to complete the whole project in South Lorain? And then we can go to the rest of the city. So we don't have to continue to address fixing here, fixing that. I understand I'm being a selfish councilman right now. I just want my whole side of town fixed. But at the same time, it makes more sense monetarily if we just fix the issue in a whole and move forward. And the residents of South Lorain deserve that.
City Service Director?
Yeah, thank you for the chair to members of council. I feel you. I sat in that chair for 4 years. One of the things that I wanted to point out to your question about the cleaning, the actual roadway, the street sweeping, that's performed by public properties. Every Monday, they try to sweep every primary roadway in the city. Every other week, they try to hit some of the secondary. The regular common streets, those are done mostly on request. If there is a major problem in an area, they specifically will look at an area and they'll try to grab a few properties or a few streets in an area in a zone, and they will hit multiple so they can best take time of their manpower going into an area. So you'll probably see it. Monday mornings, you typically will see the sweeper going around town. They do have a program in place. That is not performed by the utilities department, but that is Lori Garcia and her team. I just wanted to point something that I think is important. We have obviously an older infrastructure. There's been a lot of work that has been done, but we also have continued problems in that area. But I think the problems from the non-engineering review, that we go by what we see other factors. And every time those areas in South Lorain has flooded, I have gone out there, you have been out there, and what you see is that collection. You see a collection of grass clippings that are embedded on the catch basins. You see trash, garbage, anything that's thrown in the neighborhoods makes their way to that area. I have been on his case as well, and everyone else. Hey, I want these catch basins clean and regularly and now, and it's not enough. I have a shovel, bags, and gloves in my truck every day. I see something, you clean it up. We had that event 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, whenever we had, and that area on Pearl Avenue had a lot of water. Steel City had, 18, 20 inches of water on the outside. You and I were out there and looked at all those catch basins. They were plugged solid, but not because of a lack of progress or maintenance from the city. And I want to be clear, it's not because the city had not cleaned them. It's that when you look at that area, and if you drive down 28th Street, you will see the collection of trash that either the wind takes or people throw out the windows out of their car. I have seen that in South Lorain myself. Doing over 15 cleanups in that area. We started in one side in front of Old Central. We did Pearl Avenue, 28th Street to 31st Street, and back down to the old City Bar. By the time we got back to City Bar, the area that we had cleaned out in front of Old Central had multiple bags of trash from Burger King, McDonald's. People that were parked there, they just left them on the street as they left. So anytime we get the heavy rain, all of that gets lifted up, picked up, and it ends up in the drain. So I want to be mindful that people don't think that it's a lack of maintenance, because I have been drilling him and utilities and Lori and everyone else, but it hasn't been totally a lack of work. What I wanted to point out is that we had that heavy rain on that Tuesday. A lot of rain that took place. The next day, the utilities department went out there and cleaned one or two of those sewers. Then we had volunteers in that area because we were keeping track of the weather. Because we knew the following day, Thursday, we were expecting a similar amount of rain intensity. And we did, and we got it. But we have folks out there making sure that those catch basins were clean. I was there for 2 hours during the rain. And guess what? We didn't get the street flooding. Central, City Bar, the Twins, Rodriguez, no water in their basement. Maybe it was a fluke, but I think an aggressive cleaning program is going to help. It's not going to solve all the problems, but we also need to make sure that we are enforcing our laws, have our police department issuing citations. If people are littering, make sure we keep our city clean, because all that nonsense that's out there is what's making its way to the catch basins. And like I've told Joe, I tell Kate, I tell everyone else, I don't care about the 100-year, the 200, the 500. Listen, every time we have one is the new storm, and we're having them more frequently than ever. But it's like a bathtub. If you put the plug out over your drain and you walk away and you let the water run, what's going to happen when you come back? It's going to overflow. So we need to be aggressive, work with our council members, also work with concerned citizens that can also help the city. And if you see a catch basin that's plugged, clean it. That will help to some degree. But I do believe that we need to put our heads together, look at the problem areas. When we look at the flooding issues and a proposed plan to implement the project dry basement. Perhaps not every home needs to be addressed, but just enough to help to offset the flow. Okay, so if the problem is 40% of the units in an older neighborhood, if we address 20% of that problem, that can get us to where we don't have that problem. But I just think it takes a wider effort, and people need to make sure that, hey, keep your city clean. You're out there cleaning. We do the underpass. We've done the streets so many times. And as you're out there cleaning with crews volunteering, you have people driving in front of you throwing just bags out the window into the street. Well, all of that, that's where it's going to end up.
Can you go to add, actually, I think Kate wanted to add one more thing.
Yeah, what I wanted to say is, I think the safety service structure really hit the nail on the head there. And I believe the first storm that came through was on Tuesday the 17th, and that's when the majority of flooding occurred, right? Is that accurate? Okay. And I do believe that the majority of flooding did not occur because the storm sewer did not have the capacity to take that water. It's that the water couldn't get to the storm sewer because the catch basins were clogged, right? With debris that had been washed into those catch basins from said storm water, right? It's what we would call the first flush. It's common. What we saw the following day and the day following that, all of that debris was gone, right? The debris had already been cleaned. It had already washed into those catch basins. It had been removed from those catch basins. And a storm with about equivalent intensity didn't cause any problems, right? Again, I don't believe that it is a capacity issue. I believe that it is that maintenance issue that he is talking about. We have 7,500 catch basins in the city of Lorain. We know that there are areas that we tend to have more problems with, right? The sewer department is very aware of that. The sewer department is trying to target those areas. And, you know, Joe has indicated that there's a new superintendent there. He's been there for a couple of years, and they have made significant strides in improvements in the storm sewer system and storm sewer maintenance over what was occurring before. To add to that, you know, the discussions that we've had with administration over the last several weeks is how do we help, right? And what more can we do to try to ensure that the storm sewer system isn't limited in capacity? So what we are doing is we have an existing assessment project that is wrapping up. It was looking at the condition of all of our storm outfalls along the lake because they are main discharges for our community. We have some budget left in that program. We are going to look at some of the areas in South Lorain that have problems on a more frequent basis. That assessment is going to focus on our larger diameter pipes that carry larger volumes of flow, and we will see what we find, right? So I won't have that data available for probably a couple months, but do understand that we are putting resources to that to see if there are improvements that need to be made.
Thank you. So I guess my question, this goes more towards helping the residents that are on Seneca, 29th, 30th Street, 31st Street, by the fire station in Oakwood Park. And like I said, there's probably more drains that are just the street only. Are those drains going to be addressed to be able to take water and whatever else off the curb, or are we planning on keeping that strictly on the street? Because again, we get a little bit of water. You understand what I'm saying? We get a little bit of water, not even a quarter, half inch of rain, and those intersections are flooding because yes, there is debris and it gets covered, and then all of a sudden you're going to have the same residents that are not flooding because of a major storm. They're flooding because of the drainage system on the street, possibly. I might be wrong, but pretty confident that it floods there all the time. And I can send those pictures to everyone that she just sent me prior to this meeting.
I don't have enough information to be able to answer that question. I'm looking at the utilities. I'm just trying to load right now.
Okay.
So the utilities map. But I don't know that I'm still going to be able to give you a very good answer. So I think we should probably have that discussion separately, right?
I'd like to, because I
about that area
on that previously. And I'm not trying to be a thorn in no one.
No, not that.
I'm asking is something that I've emailed already. So if you're able to get that, I appreciate it. No need to search right now. Just get it back to me, and I'll inform the people that need to get the information. But every question that I'm asking, I'm pretty confident that I've asked already over the last 3 weeks.
Any more, Mr. Arroyo? We can come back to you as well.
I'm just trying to think. Listen, trust me. Like, you got the residents on the 2400 block of 34th Street. After the storm, I sent those emails, and I was told, hey, listen, if it's just one house, it might be something coming from the house, you know, and it's not the city's fault. Or it might not be a city issue. It might just be something coming from the house into the drainage. But if there's multiple houses, it might be an issue. 2400 block, I had a gentleman 2 weeks prior to the storm, had, I think, 23 bags of garbage that he had to throw from his basement, man cave, threw all that away. 2 other times after the 2 other storms since that, including that storm right there, had multiple drainage again. What I've been doing is I've been giving the residents the information to the city grant. So if they have any home repairs that need to be repaired, obviously I feel bad, included having myself, but trying any way to find answers for the residents of South Lorain, or even just the city in general that's addressing this issue. And if we have any types of funds, I want to be able to get that to them. And if we're also able to check the 2400 block of 34th and 33rd Street, if it hasn't been done already, and pretty sure off the top of my head that might be it. I appreciate it because the EPA report helped me get some of my questions I needed. Thank you.
I believe our crews are out there actually after the last council meeting. I actually spoke with the resident on 33rd and Palm that had a concern, and her neighbor, and we went out there and checked those catch basins, and just to make sure that we didn't miss anything. And again, that's not to I'm not trying to point fingers, but it's just, I mean, it's what we deal with is, 33rd and Palm is an interesting intersection. There's 2 catch basins on the west side of Palm on 33rd. There's 2 catch basins on Palm on the south side of that intersection. There's nothing on the north and there's nothing on the east. So if you're on the east side of Palm and 33rd, there's nowhere for that flow to go except in front of your house in the street, around the corner, or across the street. So it's not trying to point fingers, but that's the stuff we're trying to fix, and that's the stuff we're working with Kate to figure out, is there a better way?
All right, thank you. I look forward to some of the responses I get back. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Arroyo. 2 quick questions, and then we've talked today about in what's it costs to do an even better job. I know the director before storms is sending out people to these hot areas. I know Ms. Leisure's in the audience today, and we try to hit that area. And again, if you don't have this answer today, Mr. Director, I'd love for you to get this answer for council. What would it cost to literally have a dedicated person that's checking these 7,500 storm sewers, on a continuous rotation? Like, what would that cost the city? One person?
Probably $120,000.
$120,000 to have somebody who's just literally rotating through.
Yeah.
And they do 250 a day, and they check every 3 days. Every storm sewer gets looked at by a person.
That's not $120,000 salary. That's including benefits.
Benefits, and I would say if that person,
that's what I'm making clear.
that would include fringe benefits and all those things. And that would be if that person did not have a significant income, right? Because benefit structures are costly, because fringe benefits are costly, because health insurance is costly, like all of those things add up. But 7,500 catch basins is not, that is a significant, that would be a significant leap to do on an annual basis. It is not just the catch basins, it is the storm sewers attached to catch basins.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to get that information out there, because I think a lot of times, we hear these wonderful ideas, like, why don't we check them all the time? I mean, there's a cost associated with that, and we're trying to balance not flooding versus, keeping our budget within the realm of what we can afford as well. On that same topic, again, I don't know that these things are out there. I think, Kate, you'd probably be the person to answer this question. I know, like, on some of our ponds in my ward, we put a thing in front of the outlet structure called a trash rack. That trash rack is basically stopping trash from getting into that structure by blocking it before it gets to it. Are there any types of drains that are more can prevent this type of trash backup than other types of drains that you try in these hot zones?
No, and the reason that we don't see the same kind of flooding on the west side in the newer areas is because of the way things are designed now, right? It's just different. In our older areas on the south side, east side, we have very dense development that drains directly to roadways, and the only trash racks that we have are our catch basin grates, right? And if those catch basin grates clog, we have flooded roadways, right? In our newer communities, we have detention basins that, those ponds are intended to hold water. They are intended to elevate. That is the way that they are designed. We don't have that in our older communities. And in fact, in some neighborhoods, the roads were actually designed to flood. They were designed to hold water. So while we recognize that it's an inconvenience to residents, there are some neighborhoods that were legitimately intended to do that, right? So some of what we are dealing with is just a product of the era in which the neighborhoods were developed. Some of it is associated with the amount of homes we have connected, with the footer tiles connected to sanitary sewer, which is why we have higher rates of basement flooding in certain areas than we do in others. So they all kind of, they're all, you know, Councilman Lorain, you were saying that, you know, we have roadways flooding and we have sanitary sewer backups all in the same areas. And you're not wrong. We do, right? But again, it's because of the way those neighborhoods are designed that we see those things happening at the same time. They're not necessarily happening because the same systems are surcharging, right? But they're happening because it's raining. All of the systems are surcharging, which means we have roadways that are flooding because the water can't get into the catch basins, and we have basements that are flooding because the sanitary system is overtaxed.
So what are we doing? Because that sounds silly to me. We created something to flood, and it might be old, right? And so now they're all clogged up. We spent $7.8 million in the last 8 years or whatnot, and a lot of those areas that was highlighted in the picture that was sent to me by Mr. Vandersummit is flooding. So not only is it an inconvenience or uncomfortable for someone's street to flood in their basement, it costs them money that a lot of residents don't have. What areas are created to flood? And how can we fix that? Because that sounds...
So the areas, they're not in your ward.
Okay,
you're welcome. Yep. They're actually over by Mr. McGannon where he lives. So it's over on the west side.
They still got paid to fix whatever floods though. So again, that still sounds silly.
I understand, but that is the way that the roadways are designed. They actually have associated floodplain in the roads. The development was a bit wonky back in the 50s and 60s, right? It's just very different than the way we do things now. And that is why we have some of the issues in parts of our town that we have. We do our best in the engineering department to help mitigate those issues. That was with the implementation of the Martins Run Wetland Complex. We took a system that surcharged in less than 2-year events, and it now surcharges in about a 10-year event. Our storm sewers are generally designed to carry flow for a 10-year storm. If it rains at an intensity that's higher than 10 years, we can anticipate that roadways are going to flood. We don't design for capacity higher than that because it's not economically feasible. And we could, but then we have significantly more cost. Our storm sewer fees will increase, and what we will see is actually decreased functionality because those storm sewers aren't self-flushing. There's not enough flow in them to get material moved.
Yes, Mr. Director. I just want to piggyback off something Kate says. It's not economically feasible to design for sewers larger than 10-year. Sorry. Alarm for my dog. It's not economically feasible. So what we design, typically EPA asks for a 10-year 1-hour storm. We've designed these new pump stations that has come to council. We've designed and requested from our engineers to do a 10-year 2-hour storm to provide a little bit excess capacity so that we don't have sanitary backups and we try to get as much flow from the system to the plant. Because, and we've talked with the EPA about this, we would much rather bypass at the plant than bypass anywhere else in the system. I know that sounds weird, but that's kind of what the EPA wants. They want to make sure that we can get stuff out of residents' homes, out of the streets, out of going to the rivers, even though it is still going to the river, but it's going in one location, and we still provide preliminary and primary treatment at the plant as well as chlorination and dechlorination. So it's still getting chemical usage, it's still mixing, still getting some sort of treatment, but that's what we're working towards. And from the economic feasibility standpoint, just to kind of put it in perspective is, we're looking at $10, $20 million for pump stations that are designed to that 10-year 2-hour storm. You're looking at bigger pumps that are pushing 9 million gallons of flow during these storms with redundancy. Each pump is around $75,000. This is stuff that we're trying to do to make sure that this doesn't happen in areas of South Lorain, areas of Ward 8, Ward 7, all over the place. And we're trying to pick where we want these. We figure out where where it makes sense so that we don't cause the flooding issues. So that's just kind of give you a background from the sanitary perspective. To really, we're trying to vacate that system. It's a little different. We don't get the first flush, that the storm gets, but sanitary we're trying to contain that and push it along as much as possible. And we're fighting for capacity. The way the system was built, you got a 50-inch storm sewer from central Lorain combining with a 66-inch storm sewer from the west side at First Street, and they're both fighting for capacity to get through a 30-inch sewer that goes underneath the river. So I don't know what they were doing in the 50s, but that was the plan. And it's costly to dig up the river essentially, and I really don't want to. I'm sure we've already seen what a tunnel costs and what that's done. So it's we're trying to figure out what we can do to mitigate that issue.
Good, Mr. Royal.
Yeah,
We'll come back. We'll come back to you. All right, I got some other lights on. I'm sure some more stuff will come up. Councilwoman Moon.
Thank you, Mr. Thornsberry. Safety Service Director, carry on. We still have to do that issue over on 42nd Street. I like to meet with the residents because, I get emails and I run to Mr. Bob and go, they said this, Mr. Bob. So I'm going back and forth. So maybe one day set up something we can meet at the library in South Lorain. Also, in the 5th Ward, like on Dale Avenue and Wood Ward and the City View area, we still have ditches. Now, I had a problem on Dale Avenue. It was really, really bad, and Miss Miller was constantly calling. She was very upset with her answers, but I'm going to go and talk to her and see what's going on. But I have a house on Dale Avenue, DeWitt Street. There's a ditch there. And these ditches that are on Dale Avenue and Woodward, when it rains, it just comes up, and the people are having a lot of problems there. So I would like to see if we could meet with that group, because I really believe in meeting with the people so they can talk about instead of me going back emailing. Another one is on 39th and between Denver Avenue and Toledo. I had turned that in and I was told because of the cars being parked there, but he parks in his driveway and he has grandchildren and that water just sits right there. And you get mosquitoes. So I know they came out and did a little bit of work there, but they didn't come down any further. And like I said, I was told because they're driving their cars there. But yeah, you see tracks because the water is there. So when you're going down 39th Street, and another problem I have because I think it's Elyria Township, those bushes along there. So when we're driving, we almost have to drive on the grass a little bit because the bushes are hitting people's cars. But we had to do something about that Dale Avenue area and that City View area because the ditches there, they flood up really bad. I like to thank Matthew Stride. He ran against me, but he's really working with me in this ward. He sent me pictures where the bricks in one of the basins, we're going to be meeting tomorrow, thank you, and look at, those bricks. Now, in my neighborhood, in front of my house, when they did all that work, they broke a lattice and the water went in my basement. So I had to take care of that myself, not the company that did the work. And we need to talk about that. But I just don't understand the ditches. Why do they have ditches out there on Dale Avenue?
I can speak to that.
Yes, go ahead.
So there are two ways that we drain stormwater. There are two ways that we drain water from our community, specifically from our roadways. One is storm sewers and one is ditches, right? Originally, everything was ditches. The roads are crowned. There's ditches along the edges. Those ditches discharge to a receiving water at some point. The reason that portions of our community are ditched and portions are not is generally because the ditched areas were annexed from county or township, right? So when they were installed, when they were designed, when they were built, they weren't built to the same standards that we would require here in the city. Hence, they had what we would consider unimproved roads. They don't have curb and gutter. They don't have storm sewers. They have ditches. Ditches are a very efficient way of draining water. They oftentimes have more capacity than storm sewers. They are also more labor intensive, right? Because grass grows and weeds grow and things get in them that block them and whatnot. The other thing that has happened in many of our unimproved areas is that residents have privately enclosed those ditches, which means that they have created little private storm sewers in their frontage, right? So that they don't have to maintain a ditch line, so that they have an enclosed ditch. They have a little private mini storm sewer. Where we run into problems and what we see on Dale Avenue, right? Particularly, I think you're probably speaking about the corner of Dale and 38th Street, right? Joe and I are very familiar with that area. We have residents that have enclosed ditches that are failing. And because they are private improvements, we don't have jurisdiction of them, right? So we are very limited in our ability to address issues. We can tear them out, right? We can go in there and we can tear them out, but we have specific protocols that we have to follow first. That is set by ordinance. So it is there. We have, specifically on Dale Avenue, we have sent letters. We are working with residents to help get those enclosed ditches addressed. It is just it's very complex for us. If it were just ditches, it would be very easy. But because we have a lot of these private improvements, it's significantly more complicated.
Well, I can remember as a young girl growing up on the other side of 36th Street, the sewers, everybody's sewer would come out in front of their house. Now, those sewers are all closed, like from Toledo all the way down. But back over in that other area on DeWitt, there's still sewers. So how do the sewers that I grew up with that are gone now, that they still have sewers like that? I don't understand that.
I don't know. DeWitt's also a unique place because it's a boundary of city and township. Part of the road is our responsibility and part of it's not. So I think that I can't speak specifically because I don't know specifics. We would have to look at.
But how did they get rid of all those sewers? Because I can remember as a child, I mean, you could smell the urine when it used to come out of their house.
Okay, so that's different. So that's a sanitary sewer, right? That's sanitary. So that's like that blackwater, gray water, human contact thing. That now goes to the water treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant. It doesn't go to the purification plant. It goes to the wastewater treatment plant. And the storm sewers that we are talking about are the roadside ditches that drain clean rainwater from the community. So again, two separate systems: storm sewers that carry clean rainwater away that help prevent flooding or help us deal with rainwater, and then sanitary sewers, which is what you're talking about, that drain private homes and businesses of wastewater that then goes to our wastewater treatment plants.
Okay, so could those ditches be like gotten rid of, or they have to stay there on DeWitt?
Storm sewers can be installed. They can be installed through a petition process. The city does not generally, well, the way that storm sewers and that improvements are installed is they're done through an assessment process.
Okay.
The city is absolutely willing to look at the installation of storm sewers in any area that does not have storm sewers, where the residents are interested in having them installed. Because there is a cost to that installation, the city is also willing to consider helping assist with the cost of that installation, but it is almost always something that the residents need to be interested in as well.
Okay, you think we could handle that situation over on Denver and 39th Street? Because I think
we have sent letters. I have spoken personally with that resident, as has Bobby in the sewer department. We have actually spent a significant amount of time there. I've talked to Kathleen several times as well. She's very aware of what's going on. If she has questions, she's certainly welcome to call with additional questions.
Well, can you tell me what's going on?
We have required that the resident replace their broken system. They have private storm sewer installed that is actually separated at the joints, which is what's causing the flooding.
Also by their garage, by their driveway?
Correct. Yeah, they have, so Kathleen has covered ditches, as does her neighbor to the north. And there was concern that some water installations and water work that we did at a fire hydrant may have caused the flooding that they were seeing, that our crews may have damaged this gentleman's private storm system. So our crews cameraed the line and identified that it was not in fact damage caused by us. It was damage within his private installation that's caused by the joints of his installation separating. So the reason that is failing is because what he installed isn't working, right? And he is responsible for fixing that because it's a private installation. The only way that we have to address that is to tear it out. Now, we have the legal authority to do that, but we would much prefer that he handle the situation himself first.
Could you, next time when you do residents, send them information, could you as a person send that to the council person?
Certainly.
Because I'm out here, don't know.
Because we're not aware, sure.
And I say this all the time. Please let me know what's going on in that 5th ward, because it makes me look like I'm not doing anything, and I don't want that to happen. But I thank you so much, and I think for tomorrow, looking forward to looking down that manhole. And I too carry gloves and clean sewers and stuff, almost got hit by a car one day standing out there with my up in the air. So,
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Carter.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair to Kate, you mentioned that some of the streets on the west side are designed to flood. Is that West 39th Street? Is that one of the streets where the creek is at?
No, that's my knowledge.
Okay, because I sent in an email, and I believe Ray may have it, from Crystal Grasso, where she talked about the creek flooding, and it has been flooding since she was a little girl. And so I know that we went out and
where is
at it, 39th Street. Where the creek is at?
Martin's Run? 39th Street? Okay.
So
that's a whole separate can of worms there.
Yeah, I know Thornsberry told me about it a couple of years ago. So
yeah, the Martin's Run Wetland Complex significantly reduced that, the frequency of flooding. But our options are very limited. And again, it is due to natural topography and elevations. It is due to the density of development that occurred in that neighborhood when it occurred. And it just was a very different time in the building trade than what we would allow now.
I guess that's nothing.
So no, that is not intended to flood. The Martin's Run during significant rain events, the channel fills with water. We don't ever see overland flooding, like traditional overland flooding where Martin's Run exceeds its banks and floods out. What we see is that our storm sewers that connect into that are full of water at those crossings, and the roadways, the water in the roadways seek the same elevation because it's coming up through those through the storm drains. And we have looked at several different ways to fix that. The only solution that we had was the Martin's Run wetland complex. We don't have any other areas in the city where we can build any kind of overflow capacity. That was the only one. So we are somewhat limited with additional solutions in Martin's Run.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Carter. Any chance, Kate, to put some capacity in a 36th Street to Tower Boulevard connection?
So we looked at that. We looked at, and I'm happy to share the study that was completed. And when we were looking at the design of the detention basin, the Martin's Run wetland complex, we looked at several different scenarios. We had a local firm model several different options, one of which was the 18-acre complex that was constructed. One was a 30-acre complex, and then there were some options that included some offline detention in the median of Tower Boulevard, right? And what ultimately was identified that there is a very, very small capacity that would come from that, and from a financial feasibility perspective, it like doesn't ink out. There's I think we gained 1 year of frequency. I'd have to look. It was several years ago. But the difference between a 18-acre site and a 30-acre site was several $1 million and 1 year of rain event frequency to from the actual benefit, which is very nominal. From a volume perspective. So we have looked at lots and lots of options. We are actually continuing to look at options. We're continuing to look at options that we might have with Tower Boulevard. I wouldn't say the ship has totally sailed, but we are very limited in solutions that we have. And I know that that is not an ideal answer, Ms. Carter, but it is it is a very complicated watershed.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Councilwoman Carter. Councilwoman Carter, do you have anything else? Councilwoman Smigowski.
I have a couple of flooding. I know this is mainly regarding South Lorain, but Ashland and Edgewood, they, at Tower Boulevard, they are constantly flooding. 4128 was built in '64. I'm sure you're very familiar with that address. They're right next to the creek. I have driven over there when it is flooded, and I've seen where the creek, it's overflowed its banks and everything. I don't know if there's a vacant lot across the street where, I've seen debris, trees and branches and everything like that blocking, and I'm sure it's got to be under the road, that it's moved in there and everything. And I've gone into that basement when there's been 3 feet of water from the flooding. Councilman Thornsberry and I have gone the whole length of Martin's Run and walked it. We've seen where people have covered over in areas to expand their backyard. And I know where it comes in behind my backyard. We used to watch it flood up through until the person that owns that property back there, he actually took it upon himself to widen it and now it doesn't flood. You know, the kids would be on standby up in their bedroom window saying, "Mom, it's up to the ridge," and we would know that, you know, we were camping out in the basement that night to watch that sump pump. So, you know, we've got that with the constant flooding. And then we recently had flooding at West 33rd and West 34th by Lexington, because I got the phone calls on that. I turned that in. There was something going on down there. I don't know what it was. But, you know, I mean, it's showing up in different areas. And I don't know if it's that, you know, like the sewers are blocked or what have you. And, you know, Councilman Thornsberry mentioned Ms. Leisure. She's a precinct committee person in her and that. But she goes out when she watches the weather, and she knows that when we're going to get called for a lot of rain, she goes out and she checks the drains in her neighborhood all throughout her precinct to make sure that, and she's shown me video where she's been cleaning out and the stuff that people leave. And I don't know how we get it through to our residents that, you know, don't pour grease down your drains. Don't take motor oil out to the street and pour it in the sewer or the drains or what have you. Don't brush or blow your grass clippings or your leaves or anything out into the street. And, you know, when you're driving, and, you know, does anybody remember the commercials from the 70s where the Native American would be cautioning about litter, and then the tear would be running down his face? Well, you know, our residents are crying now because their basements are flooding from the litter. And guess what? Flushable wipes aren't really flushable. I hate to tell people that, but
direct your attention to the flood.
You know, we've got an illustration here in that. So, I mean, there's so many things that we need to take care of. I just got back from Canada, and they're recycling what they're allowing, and you're not allowed to have garbage disposals in your sink. They do not allow it. You have to compost everything. Nothing is going into your sewer system. They are very protective of it. We need, especially our location right on this beautiful lake, we need to be more protective of ours. But, you know, we get the calls and everything like that about the flooding, and it's crazy.
So one of the very nominal things that we are doing is through discussions with administration, we did put together some graphics that we are posting on social media before storms. The first one went out on Friday. There is one called Weather the Storm. And then there is another one about being prepared for storms. They are intended to remind residents that there are very simple activities that can be completed before a storm that can help limit localized flooding. And just to give folks some tips on things that they can do in their yard and in their neighborhood to help limit that. So I would you will likely be seeing that on the city's website and online.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman Sbrowski and Kate. Councilwoman Duvall.
Thank you. As I'm sitting here, I'm getting an education. I just think you two are very, very knowledgeable, and I appreciate it. I appreciate your service to the city. I'm wondering, is there anything that council can provide in terms of like AI to help develop a plan for the city for the next 100 years? Then inputting the stuff, because if AI can write my college essay, it may be able to help us plan the problems we have. If you're going out in the world, there may be some city that's solved a problem that we have. AI would be knowledgeable about that. So, and I know that the building and housing, building and planning had talked about a system of a computer that would help them chart, like, you know, where the problems are in the city, where the Airbnbs are, what problems, all of that information inputted into that type of program may be helpful to help us come up with a plan. And I do want to say, go ahead.
Did you forget what you were going to say? Happens to me all the time. I'm a mom, so, it's called mashed potato brain. Joe implemented a program called CityWorks that he might talk about. Maybe we did talk about a little bit.
Oh, he did.
And what that does is that interfaces with our city GIS system, which is our computerized mapping program that we use to do all sorts of things, right? We have a staff member in the engineering department that manages that. And that program, when compiled in that GIS, can really help us identify, number one, areas where we spend a lot of time, right? We can buffer certain distances from certain things based on certain criteria and be like, oh, well, we've done 72 calls for storm sewer related things in the last year at this corner. Maybe we have a problem, right? So, the implementation of technology is incredibly helpful to us. And we are working towards that, right? I would say that's still a work in progress.
Yes.
Okay. But we are definitely making strides in that is helping us better compile the data that we have and make better decisions with the information that we have.
Okay, I just wondered if there was something that, that city council could help you either provide money for it or something, because I think that's very important that you be able to mesh all the issues of the city and come up with a plan.
We do too.
Okay, well, let us know.
We will. I'll point it out, or Joe will point it out.
And we've requested additional funding. I believe I came to council last meeting for additional funding for CityWorks to implement our vertical assets. That will give us a more preventative maintenance schedule. And so right now CityWorks has been very helpful. And I can tell you so far in 2025 we've cleaned 85,000 linear feet of sanitary sewers. So we're out there and we can see exactly where we've been. So it gives us an idea of what we're doing. And on the water side, it's the same thing. I mean, I can tell you, we've had 95 water breaks this year, and 45 of those came in January. So that gives you an idea of we're getting the data at our fingertips, and instead of having to go search for it, like I had to do for Councilman Aurora, I'm able to just pull it up, and that's actually I've been sitting here with a lot of this up so I can see where we've been. And just to add one thing with a photo, that's actually a Jaeger pump station, and that pump was still running. They found that's a check valve that they opened up for preventative maintenance just to check the check valve, and the pump was still running and had that inside of it. So that's wipes. That's wipes. That's grease. That's maybe a T-shirt is in there. We found shopping carts at the plant. Marbles. For some reason, people like flushing marbles.
Seems very retro. Yeah.
But those are the wipes. That's our biggest issue. That's our biggest expense, and that's honestly why we're buying the pumps we're buying. We buy what we call chopper pumps. They're a little bit more expensive, but they chop up the wipes so that they don't clog. And that way we can continue pumping the sewage instead of having to shut the pump down, which can possibly cause backups in the areas. So that just gives you an idea of what we're looking at.
Thank you, Councilwoman Duvall. I did have one other one before I turn it over to the public here. Obviously, with the frequent water break issues we were running into on the construction with Yorktown and Longbrook, a resident had mentioned that in other communities, I want to say the resident said Medina, that they have the ability through their payment system to send text messages to households when a break happens or when a boil alert. They're using technology to better communicate with residents. Is that something that we have the capability to do? And if not, is it something that we're looking into trying to get the capability to do that?
We currently don't have the capability to do that, and I would love to have the capability to do that. We were using the WENS system, which was with the county, but now they have a new emergency management system that Mr. Rixella can speak to.
Council and the public. We just started something new in the city because the WEN system, the county got rid of it. So we work with the county for the WENs for several years already, and that's what the emergency alerts came out for, any kind of utility issue, any kind of street issue for plowing, different things like that. And again, it's just for the emergencies only. Boy alerts went on that too. Now the county went to what's called Code Red, and that's what the city of Lorain is using. I have currently already built up a manager's page, city of Lorain page, and I'm adding, actually I did make a city council page too. You might not know it, but here eventually when we start sending out notices to all city council, you'll get your own personal notice. So if Mr. Carbonaro or Mrs. Golden have an issue that they need engineering, they have, I think, a couple of folks that can send out those emails, but they'll go on the same site and they'll be able to see that group and they can issue that to the group. There's over 7,000 City of Lorain residents that are part of that Code Red. And what they did was they took, if you run the WENs, they just transfer you from the WENs right over to Code Red. So from as far as I know, when I went through the training just a couple weeks ago, you do not have to re-sign up. It's if you're on the old WEN system, you're automatically going to get the Code Red system. So if you want to sign up, that what I'll do is I'll put it on the city website for the sign up page. I can at least get that out to the citizens that way. I can share with the council people. Of course, I don't have each individual emails for folks in the city of Lorain, but at least we can do that, put it on our Facebook, we can put it on the city page and try to get that out that way so that folks that aren't signed up, they can sign up. So if, again, if Mr. Carbonaro has an issue with any kind of water utility issue, he can notify us and we can get that out to the citizens, to council, to our managers immediately.
Thank you. That's great information. With that, we'll open it up to the public. Anybody wishing to speak on the topic of flooding in general or specifically South Lorain flooding, please come to the microphone, state your name.
My name is Marie Dudukovich, and I live at 3918 Palm Avenue. And I have the whole block floods whenever it floods, when it rains real hard. And I have a storm sewer right in front of my house. I've called the water department or the street department or the sewer department and told them that I'd like to have that sewer cleaned and the main sewer in the middle of the road, because I think that would help with our block of people. They're older people and they're Section 8 people, and nobody seems to want to report anything, and they call me because I'm a person, and I try to do the best I can. But my next door neighbor moved next door, and the other day when we had that big rainstorm, part of her basement flooded by the sewer, and some of mine did. And I have a finished basement, and the big flood, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, I had to have all the carpeting taken out, and I'm a widow, and my children don't live around here, and I had to hire people to go ahead and take all this stuff out. And I'm hoping that they will clean the sewers and the big one in front of my house.
I said it's 3918.
That is correct. And I want to thank Angel Arroyo for giving me the information and giving me the numbers for the sewer department, and Mary Spandowski, and Ray, since she's in South Lorain, and I know how your parents feel. We're older, and we can't do the job, and I don't have the funds since my husband's been deceased 24 years, to constantly replace everything in our basement. So you understand. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dukovich.
Hello, Catherine Brunish. I'm sure you guys has heard my name before. Can you
go a little bit? Yeah, pull the mic up a little bit because we're not picking you up back here.
Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Hello, my name's Catherine Brunish. I'm sure you guys have heard my name before. I've been in some of your email boxes, and I've also been on the news about this issue. And I've worked very close with Angel on this issue as well. First and foremost, I want to say, I'll make it super quick, just a statement. I don't need a response. I don't have any questions. I just want to leave you with something to think about. And I say it with the most respect. As I'm looking at each one of you today, I see pity, I see sympathy, but at the highest, I see arrogance, and I see disregard. I bought my house in 2020. First time. I've lived in Lorain my whole life. 2023 comes around, and it's not the shootings down the street. It's not the crime or the drugs or the gang members. It's the rain. Thank you. I remember looking outside while holding my one bulb. And I'm not gonna lie, I laughed because I was like, why are these people driving through this flood? That's so silly. They're getting stuck. That laugh soon turned into terror because you can hear the house shifting under the weight of the water. And I'm holding my one bulb and I'm thinking, how are we gonna get out of here? I have a big enough vehicle to get through the storm. But what about these other people, and where am I going to put my baby trying to walk through this water? I have 4 kids. I lost $25,000 in that storm. I had no help from the city. I had no help from anyone. I did it all myself. I make too much money for grants. I'm a very outlier when it comes to being a Lorain citizen because of what we do for a living. The fact that we are in a spot that doesn't have many homeowners, and the fact that I have a vacancy across the street, a church to the left, and nobody on the right. So it's just us. And we flood every single time it rains. And again, I say this all with the utmost respect to you guys for what you do. But what we've seen here today was, again, arrogance and disregard. Maybe not from some of you. As I said, I do see sympathy and pity in some of your faces, because that's what I look at. I don't look at words. I don't listen to what's being said. And you have made great points, which is why I don't need a response to this. That flood was the worst. But every single time it rains, me and my husband are outside, cleaning all 12 of the drains that are by our house. All 12. Completely clean, beautiful, well-groomed, still backing up, not draining, nothing there to stop it from draining, and yet we're still losing. And it's frustrating, especially being as young as I am. I can only imagine how the older folks feel. It's frustrating because I've spent my entire life savings into this home to only live there for 5 years and be met with flood after flood after flood. And I don't have a very old home. It's only from '06. So it's not like it's from the 90s where it has this degraded system. And every single time I've had to file with my homeowners, and the price just goes up and up with them. And again, make too much for grants, so you guys can't help. So it's very frustrating. And I feel if you hear it from one of us how frustrating it is, as opposed to somebody in a higher standing position, which no offense to anyone whose house is flooded, that it would bring some light on exactly what is going on in this city. You understand the infrastructure way more than I do. I'm a very bright person, but I'm not infrastructure bright. So I feel that you may have something going on. I'm coming forth, but I can tell you, no street cleaner has came down my road. The only city that I see is just fixing potholes here and there. The only sewer department that I've seen has done nothing but ruin my home, because they'll come out and water will spew out of the toilets from whatever it is that they're doing and splash all over my house, which again, for small children, that's not very fun.
What's your address?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, 1981 East 29th Street. It's on the corner of Clinton and 29th.
1981 East 29th.
And it's not just when we get a small rain, like you said, it was Tuesday we had this and Wednesday we had that. It's every rain. I am out there in my water boots, cleaning out the drains and trying to get it to go down. There's a specific spot in my yard that I know if water hits, I need to go downstairs and start evacuating everything. And it will get all the way up to my first floor sometimes.
And you said your house was built in 2006?
Mm-hmm. It was the lady who originally lived there. She had gotten a grant through the city of Lorain, South Lorain cleanup thing, and rebuilt the house, and that's when it was done. It was built by the city. And it's not like we could move. I mean, we have a really great mortgage.
I understand. Yeah.
I don't want to lose that rate and have to spend more somewhere else.
Well, we appreciate you sharing your story. Can we get somebody from the administration can follow up and see what's going on?
Can I get your contact information before I'm gonna?
If you don't want to share it publicly, come around to the side here. Thank you for sharing your story. Anybody else from the audience? Ms. Leisure?
Melody Leisure, 4025 Stanford Avenue. I live on the corner of 40th and Stanford that continuously floods every time it rains. I go around my precinct cleaning my drains. I bought my house in 2004. Shortly after I bought my house, we get a rain, and I have 6 inches of water in my basement. Mind you, I bought a house that is waterproofed and has a sub pump. So I've got waterproofing and a sub pump, and I still flooded. It is continuing to flood every time it rained. I lost probably $15,000 to $20,000 between appliances, personal belongings, things I can't replace personally because they were heirlooms. The full administration asked us to put a backflow valve inside of our house. Done. $900. Had that done. I continually to flood every time it rained. I got to the point where I worked at 911. I would send my neighbor across the street a text message, is our street flooding? Are we flooding? I got to the point where when I was home, I have a submersible sub pump. It would be down in the basement. The hose would be run up, laying on the landing to run out the garage if needed, if I started to take on water. Every time I have complained, the city said it is my problem. My problem. So in 2019, I took $5,000 out of my own pocket, took out a loan for $25,000. I waterproofed the outside of my home. I fixed the walls that were starting to buckle from the flooding. I have an outside sub pump. I have an outside check valve. I put $30,000 into the ground. I have nothing to show what I improved my house on a $30,000 other than it's in the ground to help stop flooding. Knock on wood, so far I haven't flooded. I continuously check my neighborhood. I have recently sent Josh a picture of an Ohio Edison light pole laying on the curb blocking a drain on Vassar and Cambridge. I have continuously sent him pictures in the last 2 weeks of drains that are blocked that I don't have time to clean because I work 2 jobs so I can afford to live in my home. I'm getting very, very disgusted with the city and this issue. I work tirelessly to maintain my home, to maintain the property, so I can live comfortably. Now, every time I've said this is an issue, the city has said it's my responsibility. The only thing I can do is approach the building department at this point and ask to have my house put on stilts so I don't flood. This is a continuing issue. It's not my problem now. I have done everything humanly possible to prevent water coming into my house. It is now the city's responsibility to step up to the plate and take care of it. I cannot continuously use $4,000 dollars in appliances. I have to have the motherboard replaced in the furnace. I have an air conditioner that has to have the vents replaced that go up and out to the house. So it is no longer my issue that we continue to flood. Back in the day, before they put in the retention ponds and everything, I would send Josh pictures where the street has flooded. I continuously send Josh pictures of flooding, of issues. He's very aware that when my name comes up on his phone, he's probably like, oh shit, now what? Because it's a continuous issue.
I'm sorry, what is your address?
4025 Stanford Avenue, corner of 40th and Stanford, because for some reason when they built the neighborhood, there's a drain on my end, and there's a drain down at Vassar and Cambridge. There is nothing in between.
Sure.
And now they're saying, then apparently they talked to you, the engineer department, we cannot put another catch basin somewhere in the middle to catch all that water. So this is an issue.
Kate,
I need your contact information.
I can share that with you.
Sounds great.
Yep,
Okay.
I got it. So thank you, Ms. Leisure. I'll get Kate in contact with you. And I think too, as we talk about like possibly creating a Project Dry Basement program, I think Ms. Leisure might be I don't want to say a cautionary tale, but what the story I heard, and Mr. McGann is not here, he could probably tell it better than I could. I think they tried it in a couple houses, and the people still flooded. And people are like, hey, why am I spending $5,000 and I'm still flooding? And I think that's what Miss Leisure did, and then eventually, knock on wood, I don't think she's had a basement flood since she spent the $30,000. So when you try to run a Project Dry Basement, if we're going with, this quick fix that's $5,000, people are going to get really angry. They spend $5,000 and they still flood because some houses might need the $30,000 fix. And that was $30,000 before COVID, which is probably $40,000 now. So, anyone else from the public? Seeing nobody from the public, we'll come back to council. Councilman Arroyo.
No, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate you guys. I know some of my questions I asked had you searching a little bit, but those are some of the questions that I was getting myself, right?
Sure.
And so I appreciate y'all doing that. I appreciate you, Mr. Carrion, doing what you've been doing, being proactive since the storm, and look forward to continue working with the residents. Now, Ms. Cat, her intersection is one of those intersections that I'm talking about where it's just a street drain. There's nothing on the curb, right? And so obviously you hear the trauma that she's dealt with her family. So there's multiple residents like that. There's also multiple residents have made the same complaint when there's some cleaning going on with sewage coming back through the toilets and through the bathroom. So I just want to make you aware she's not the only one that's dealing with that. So, but again, I appreciate you guys and thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Arroyo, and thank you for pushing for the meeting and being a strong vocal resident, voice for your residents. So I think you've done a really nice job of keeping it under control today, because I know when we spoke, you were angry, you were frustrated, you were upset, and I understand and I sympathize with you, and I think you've done a great job here today. So I appreciate you. Anyone else from council? Seeing none, I will call this meeting. We do have one more meeting. If you're interested in chickens, stay put, because that meeting is coming up next.
All right, hello everybody. We're going to try to take our seats so we can get into this. The Buildings and Land Subcommittee. We're going to be discussing a proposed ordinance allowing the keeping of chickens. So, real quick off the bat, I think everybody has read the proposed ordinance. There was some questions submitted that I had emailed some response back about. There's a lot of concerns about, I'll see if I can remember most of them, all of them. Having up to 12 chickens, I think limiting that, cutting that back. If council so wants to. 6, I think, is fine. I think you have to purchase them in groups of 6. I think that's why it was 12 or 6 or 12. Slaughtering was a concern. We can talk about that as we get to that. Disposal of either deceased chickens or the chicken poop, I guess, was another issue. We can get to that as well. I did pull quite a bit of information about that, and there is, you can actually compost a lot of those issues away, frankly. You can compost the birds themselves. You can compost the manure as well. There are ways of doing that. If you go to the Ohio Department of Agriculture, they actually have what is called a mortality management plan for chickens when they pass away. That'd be one thing that kind of helps answer some of those questions. There's also Ohio Livestock and Poultry Mortality Composting Manual. So there's multiple avenues to dispose of the birds in general. Just to kind of cover that real quick, they do allow burning, which is obviously not allowed in our area, but burial, composting, rendering, sanitary landfills, and so on. But what I kind of want to do, though, because I know there's a lot of questions and concerns from council, so we will go to council, address those questions, concerns, go to the public, come back to council, and kind of go from there. So there's some lights on. I'm just going to go in order left to right. Councilwoman at large, Schminkowski.
Yes, I'm going to be on the record in saying that I am adamantly opposed to this. Have been from the get-go. I have received numerous phone calls, text messages, and emails asking me to not support this. There are people I've called in and I've had thank you to the police department and the safety service director. We recently had 58 chickens removed from one house. I grew up on a farm with 10 acres. All right, and we had chickens. So I am very, very familiar with what it entails. I know what happens when your chickens get lice and when you have to dust them. I know how much land that they've got to have for scratching and what you've got to feed them and that. I am also very familiar with chicken droppings and the smell of that, especially if you do try to compost it. These are farm animals and belong in a rural setting. It's only the humane thing to do for them. And people, we don't have the lot sizes in the city. Now, if you're in the township or you are in a rural area, that is one thing. But having them in an urban setting, and many of the people that are talking about this, they don't want them. We have a law in the books that says they're not allowed. Do we have chickens in the city? Of course we have chickens in the city. We know that. And I like the military policy of don't ask, don't tell. All right? You fly under the radar with this stuff. Okay? And if it lets us do something with the bad actors. And when I say bad actors, I'm talking about people that don't take care of their birds. We have bird flu that is now jumping to human beings. One of the largest suppliers of chickens just lost 90% of their flock due to bird flu. We had ostrich farmers that had 3,000 birds culled. We have had salmonella outbreaks with eggs. And we are not prepared to deal with this. We've got people that won't take care of their dogs, won't take care of their cats, sometimes won't even take care of their kids, but we want to go and allow them to have chickens. What's next? Cows? Goats? Turkeys? Geese? We just had ducks. I had to turn in somebody for ducks that were reported. And that was 2 streets behind me. Okay, so that's on the west side. We have people that are breeding roosters, and we know what they're doing with the roosters. It's cockfighting. That is an inhumane, savage sport. And nobody is concerned about the welfare of these animals. The people that want chickens, it's a romantic idea. Oh, I'm going to have chickens and I will go and have my own eggs and I'll go out and get them. There is so much care that goes into adequately taking care of these birds. I can barely handle a parakeet. And I mean, I'm being honest, and I'm retired. I have not had a single person contact me except for Councilman Arroyo, and I think he's just doing it to, pardon the pun, get my goat, that has been joking around about being in favor of chickens. Once again, we are an urban setting. We don't need farm animals, and chickens belong on farms. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I certainly appreciate those comments. To kind of address maybe just a few of those. As I was doing some research, I don't see the CDC showing person-to-person jumping. If you do look, we actually have in the state of Ohio one listed total case of poultry and farm animals with what is it, H5? I believe it's the H5 bird flu. But if they are jumping person-to-person, I'm not aware, but the CDC does not list that. One of the other things too is with roosters. That's part of the reason why, besides the noise themselves, obviously, why if you read the ordinance, roosters are not allowed. Obviously, for cockfighting being an issue. Real quick too, to kind of give an idea for why I had put this together. The genesis of this did come from residents asking. I actually have quite a few of them in my ward that actually do have chickens. But beyond that too, some of the conversations that started when egg prices were going crazy. So that was kind of just for everybody to have an idea of where this essentially came from. But yeah, as you go through, you read the ordinance, it is structured to where the health and safety of the chicken is taken into account. For the amount of room required per chicken, the size of the coop, the run itself, no free ranging chickens, the safety and the cleanliness, the smell is specifically listed in the ordinance. And the reason for that too is so that as we have these issues of if it smells bad and things like that, that the permit that they were given allowing them to have these chickens can just be taken away. Part of this too is if you read, and there was some of the other issues, are the penalties heavy enough? If we want to, we can increase them, because as you do look at the city, yes, we do have chickens and we have chickens everywhere. So part of why I put this together was to give a framework so that people can keep them well and keep them safely in the way they're supposed to, and have some oversight and have somebody who's looking in on them. And if they're not doing it properly, they will be fined and feed, and their chickens will be taken away. At the end of some of the penalties there in the ordinance, it actually states that if you lose your chickens, if they have to be taken away, it is at your expense, and the expenses compile every day that if you're in violation. But because as you listed, the issue with the 58 chickens, right, that were taken.
Yes.
My concern with that aspect too is the individual had 58 chickens, and I had sent an email. I did not get a response, so if my information needs to be updated, I do apologize. But my understanding was that they weren't fined by PD or by BHP. I could be wrong on that. But that also the APL came out and took those chickens. Well, who's paying the APL to take those chickens, and who's is the owner of the chickens carrying that burden that now the APL has? Well, in this ordinance, it allows for that. So if your chickens get taken, you just so that you have to pay for your errors. Let's say.
And I understand that. We have a hard enough time enforcing the rules and the ordinances in the city as it is, and we're going to add more to the police, to the auxiliary, to BHP?
Sure. So if you read it the way that it's structured, it's actually under the purview of the safety service director, which the thought process on that was that it is then put under the purview of Officer Slinger. It's the animal control, so that he actually handles that. So it is PD, and it is an extra burden, you could say, on PD. But the idea wasn't necessarily to have your street patrol going out there and citing the individuals. It was actually to put it into the hands of somebody who is overseeing, the other animal issues in the city.
I would think that Officer Swinger, he's doing a great job in that, and he's really been very responsive, and Ray has been outstanding in getting back to me on these issues when the people have called in and that. But I think he's got his hands full with the dog issue in this city, with loose dogs and everything like that. We've got loose dogs, we've got feral cats, we've got coyotes. Oh my God, the raccoons and possums, and well, on the east side, the raccoons that are being fed by some of the residents and that, and now we're going to add chickens to this. Sure. Okay, a couple of streets behind me when the people had chickens a couple of years ago. And they chase, I've had calls from West Skyline where people have been cornered in their house by an angry chicken. And okay, I'm not afraid of a chicken, but you get somebody who's elderly, and birds can be pretty aggressive.
Or a child.
Yeah, exactly. And that. I just think that if we continue this, where we keep it on the books where they're not allowed, and if the people they have them and they don't have roosters, and I know that there's a rooster over there off of Oak Hill Boulevard because we hear them at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, that if they are maintaining it, and again, flying under the radar, okay, I'm not, it sounds like I'm encouraging people to not follow the law and that. I'm just saying they've been doing this, but if you put it on the books, you know that people, they can have 6. You know they're going to have 10. All right, or 12 if they've got to buy them in groups of 6. You know that if you make them have permit, they're not going to get permits. They're going to say, I have the right to do this. We have too many people that are going to skirt this anyway. This allows us to really bring the hammer down on this, and I think that we're opening up a can of worms. And I would anticipate that if we allow the chickens, the next people are going to say, well, if you've got chickens, I want to have ducks. Sure. And if you have ducks, I want to have geese. And geese are mean. I'm just saying. I want to have a swan or a peacock. They're pretty. I like them. I want to have a peacock running around my property. All right, and then the next, I said, somebody says, well, if they can have chickens, why can't I have a miniature horse? It's no bigger than a golden retriever. If they're going to push the envelope on this, we are an urban city. We don't need farm animals. We can barely handle urban animals such as dogs and cats. Thank you.
Understood. Yeah, I would, a few responses there. And I don't mean, no disrespect to this, I don't see chickens as a slippery slope necessarily to other farm animals, but the point is well taken. And I don't know if allowing people to have 6 or 12 or 2 chickens, right? If they do grow past that and they have 12 or 15, I mean, that's part of the reason, in my opinion, why this would exist, because it then would allow for some course of, to address that issue, to cite those individuals, to say, hey, you only allowed 6, you have 8, Officer Swinger swung by for his yearly inspection or whatever that might be, in the verbiage, however we set that, and say, hey, no, you have too many chickens. Now it's incumbent upon the individual to then get rid of them. As I said, the reason for putting this together was allow for the individuals who do keep chickens to do it properly. If we aren't enforcing what we have now, I see the concern that maybe this won't be properly enforced. I feel like as council members, part of our duty, frankly, is to write ordinances that make sense, that can be followed. And if we know there's an ordinance on the book that is not currently being followed and it's impacting either our residents and or those chickens themselves, like the 58 that were removed, then either we need to work on this ordinance and make it work for everybody, or we should be working on another ordinance that modifies the existing ordinance and allows for a greater impact on the individual breaking that ordinance. Just as a thought.
I will have to respectfully disagree with you on this. I think that you are opening up a can of worms, and I don't think that this is advisable. That it is going to create problems, and right now it is a rarity that we have chicken complaints. And I mean, I really don't get a whole lot. I got the one about the 58, and I would complain if there were 58 chickens living next door to me too. mostly I get them about roosters, or I get them when the chickens get loose, and it's usually the same person over and over in the area. The chickens, the 58 chickens that were removed, Beth and I have been chasing those chickens for 6 years. Yeah. So we just couldn't figure out where they were. We finally figured out where they were, and we're able to turn it in. And that, but it's not like it's prolific through the entire city. Again, these lots, a lot of these lots are not fenced in. A lot of these lots are not big enough for chickens. They need to scratch and everything like that. It is different if you had acreage, if you are township adjacent, or what have you. But having chickens in the city, I'm going to tell you right now, I do not want chickens next door to me. I don't want the smell. I don't want the noise.
No, that point's very well taken. I think part of the lot size issue, I had originally looked at limiting it per, you have to have over half an acre to have 3 chickens, an acre to have 6 chickens, so on and so forth. Moved away from that for other reasons. If you do read the ordinance, though, there are setbacks that would, in my opinion, can be increased in a way that then only allows for certain lot sizes then to allow those chickens. Also in the ordinance, it does state that you do have to have your chickens fenced in, and you have to have the area beyond that, like your backyard, fenced in as well, to have those chickens. So, but I think your points are well taken. I just, like I said, in my opinion is that properly giving people the guidelines to follow, but then also giving the ability to enforce those through fines or fees. And then, again, back to the 58 chickens, like you said, you guys are trying to figure out who had those for 6 years. Another thought on this was to actually tag those chickens too. So not only do you have to get the permit for the chickens to keep those 6 chickens, they actually have chicken tags that are actually an industry thing that you number your chickens. So those are just ideas for how you actually fix the ordinance and or try to work with what is already existing.
Well, in a city aspect and an urban aspect such as this, the only chicken I'm interested in is roasted, original crispy, original recipe or crispy. I don't think that they need to be in the city.
I appreciate it.
So, thank you.
Absolutely. What do we got next? Miss Emily.
Thank you, Mr. Nutt. As we know, all you got to do is drive down any street on any given day, and you will see ordinances that we have in place that people don't follow the rules. Okay? Now, compost piles are nasty. They smell, and you can smell them 100 to 150 feet away, and on a good day further. And I happen to speak from experience because for a few years I lived out on a farm. My kids raised animals for 4-H. It was a nasty time in my life, believe me. As a matter of fact, my son raised chickens. He had a grand champion chicken. And that chicken stunk. They all carried lice. Okay? That was a big thing in that school district. Okay? They sent home things that, check your kids' hair because it's a farm town. Now, on the east side, in the first ward, a lot of our lots are 40, 45 foot wide. I happen to have a 200-foot deep lot, so it's a little bigger. But they're not that big. But people don't read all this stuff, and they are still going to have way more chickens. You're not allowed to have any now, and they have them. Over on Euclid Avenue, I've been trying to get pigs removed for 7-8 years, and they've multiplied. Now I understand from the neighbors that there's 3 of them. Okay, people don't follow rules. You give them, just like the fireworks, okay? You allow them for 4 days, and guess what? Last night, 2:30 in the morning, I wanted to go find somebody and choke them. So, I've had a couple people that have contacted me that would like chickens, okay? I have had over 50 contact me that adamantly are opposed. And Dan, where you live, you're in a semi-rural area. My former mother-in-law lived right down the road from you. Okay, there were people in through there on South Broadway that had chickens back in the day, and I'm talking 40, 50 years ago, for God's sakes. Anyway, I haven't had anybody say this is a great idea. you're going to be back to the day, as Mary said. It's not going to stop. Then you're going to want a goat. Then they're going to want a miniature. I've got a granddaughter that I don't remember what she wants. But anyway, it's something that's not going to happen at my house. So I'm a hard no on this. And egg prices aren't that high anymore. And people are adamantly against it. So, at least the ones I've talked to. And I've made it a point to ask people too. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Councilwoman Kempton.
Through the chair. So, I've done a little bit of research on this in the last 2 weeks. Elyria does allow people to have chickens. They allow them to have up to 3. So, I have couple questions. Who would check the dimensions of the chicken coops and runs? What department would that fall under?
The way it's written, it would be well, it's actually technically up to the safety service director to appoint who does that, but the thought process would be that would be Officer Swinger.
Now he would check to make sure that the chicken coops are the right size for what we're saying the lot would be.
You're talking about the setbacks and the lot size and whatnot. I believe that'd be part of the application.
Okay. And what would be the cost to the residents to do this?
Well, that's actually up for debate. I mean, right now it's $100 for a permit, but that's entirely up to council's decision to raise that or not change it.
Okay. I think it's kind of unfair to Officer Swinger with no training. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe he does have the training on this type of thing, but no training and no time to say, by the way, tomorrow, instead of all the dogs and all the other, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, he also is with the abandoned cars to say, now you're going to do this. So unless we're going to make it so expensive to hire someone, I think asking him to do it is kind of unfair. I do like the oversight because New Orleans has allowed chickens for the last 10 years. They are now in council trying to rescind that because they are overrun by chickens to the point where tourists are not going there. So, I mean, I get that it kind of can be funny. I mean, 58 chickens or 56 chickens or whatever that was horrible to those animals. And it was very horrible to the people that had to live next to it. It's not that I have somebody right now that has a chicken coop in my ward that is heated, air conditioned, has music playing, and has cameras in it. She treats those chickens better than most people treat their children. And I mean, I pass it. I don't have a smell. I don't have anything, to say about it. Should we have some type of law? Probably, that we don't have another 56 chickens. I just don't know where we're at because I think it's unfair to ask one person to do this full time. Thank you.
No, that's a great point. Thank you. Councilwoman Carter.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. I know this is a serious issue and everyone has brought up great points. And those points have also been brought up to me. But my neighbors and the people in my ward, they have adamantly said no chickens. If they wanted to live next door to a farm, they would have moved to a farm. So no chickens, no chickens, no chickens. They don't even want the roosters. And they know that there are chickens, throughout the city, but we don't need any more. And we probably need to figure out how to get rid of the rest of them too. So, and move them to the country or the rural areas.
Thank you. Councilwoman Moon.
Let me get myself together here. Sorry. All due respect to everybody, I've been a council lady since 2016. We just now got people getting off the grass parking, okay? And it's 2025. Had those chickens in my neighborhood on the corner. My friends drive by and go, what is that smell? I know there's those chickens down the street. He had chickens, he had ducks, he had birds, he had cats, he had everything in that yard. And then he called me Karen because he thought I turned him in, and come to find out, I said, no, here's the email here. It's the smell. Then I found out the reason they couldn't remove those chickens because somebody in South Lorain in the basement had a fence and they were doing cockfights. I'm talking big time. I'm talking money. Now, if we can get that money from those cockfights and use it, that'd be good. Maybe we can have a little fun. But until we can have a fun for cockfights, I don't want no chickens. They already call the Fifth Ward the hood in the ghetto. No, no, no.
Thank you. Let's see. Councilwoman's policy.
Many people contact me. They are absolutely against the chickens. We can't even enforce the firework ordinance, so I don't even know how we think we're going to enforce chickens. So I am definitely a hard no on this.
Thank you. Councilwoman DeWall.
Yes. I was raised on a farm too. My grandfather's farm was like 140 acres, so I'm a farm girl. But if you look at what Councilman Nutt is saying, and I mean, just imagine if we didn't have any rules about drugs. People do what they want to do. Having a rule gives you an instrument to try to control those things. It gives you a structure on which to base your actions, that they're legal, they're part of the law, whatever. So I can understand the need for supervision or hard rules for this type of event. So while I don't think people should have chickens, I do think the city should have a mechanism to handle an issue if it comes up.
Thank you very much. We have one more light and then we'll go to the audience. Councilwoman Henley.
Thank you. Ms. Duval, with all due respect, we have hard rules right now. No, chickens aren't allowed, and they don't follow them. The rules aren't being followed now. So when they get more, this is the fine, you can have this many square feet, your coops have to be raised, this, that, you have to clean up. If they don't follow the simple one, that you're not permitted to have them, then they're not going to follow more expansive rules. That's my opinion. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. We have one more light. We'll go to Councilwoman Larson-Pinkowski and then to the audience.
Yeah, chicken wrangling. We took chickens to the fair. I was a 4-H girl. And you need to have a burlap feed sack. You go and you grab the chickens, you catch them, you swing them upside down by the feet, you put them in the burlap bag, and they become very docile. And that's how you transport chickens. And so if somebody wants to get you some burlap feed bags, if you got chickens in your backyard and we're not going to let them, I will go and help Officer Swinger go and wrangle chickens. So I've had a lot of experience in doing that. We had over 200 chickens at one time. We had free-range chickens before they were cool. It was called the Chickens Got Loose. So, but like I said, we are slowly being able to address the chickens we have in the city now because of Officer Swinger and because of Safety Service Director Carrion taking it seriously. So, and they are addressing these things, and it has been a very positive thing. Neighbors that, when the chickens have been removed, have reached out and said, we are so grateful that we don't have to deal with the smell, we don't have to deal with the dirt, we don't have to deal with the noise. So we are on the right track, and I think that doing this reverses that momentum. Thank you.
Thank you. We are going to actually go to our Safety Service Director first. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you to the chair, members of council, and the public. Just to answer some of the questions, we do have a law in place, and the chickens are not permitted. I have been in this position now for about a year and a half. And in those 18 months, I have received a total of 2 complaints concerning chickens. The one from you on the 58, which were removed. Last weekend, there was one in South Lorain that we turned in. I believe the inspectors from Building, Housing, and Planning went out to inspect the property. The gentleman was out of town. He did contact me last night when he returned home to say that all the chickens were gone. So in both cases, we have been able to send personnel, whether it's through the Building Housing Department or Officer Swinger, and in both cases, we have been able to mitigate that issue. So I do receive a lot of phone calls about potholes, a lot of calls about fireworks, a lot of complaints, flooding, etc. But the chickens really has not been a major issue, only 2. But it has been addressed by the fire team.
Mr. Mayor?
I see Matt is here. Matt, do you have any insight regarding how our zoning code would deal with an ordinance like this if it was passed? Because I think that's important for council to know how zoning might weigh in on this.
Sure, absolutely. And through the chair, Matt Kuzner, BHP Director, and there's a couple points that I'd like to bring up. First, with the zoning code, the city through the Building, Housing, and Planning Department already has an accessory structure permit application. So any structure that is not the primary structure, think of a shed, think of a garage, anything that has 4 walls, a foundation, and a roof, has to go through the Building, Housing, and Planning Department for a permit. Anything less than 480 square feet is more or less permitted by right. We still look at those structures to determine placement on the property to make sure it conforms with setbacks and the like. But this ordinance, we already have an ordinance in place that really addresses the size of structures, placement of structures, purely based on our zoning code. If someone did want to place a structure within those mandatory setbacks, they would have to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals and request a variance. So with that said, there's also another part of this ordinance that references the appeals process to the Zoning Board of Appeals. I would recommend that that be changed to the Housing Board. Chapter 1521, the Housing Board of Appeals, that chapter specifically deals with rejected permits for anything. So that is a completely separate board than the zoning board. They see, they review anything that's rejected by the chief building official or by the safety service director in some limited cases. But this would be, I believe under the purview of that board as opposed to the zoning board. So there are some implications on other ordinances. I'm not going to weigh in on the policy decision regarding how many or, if they should be allowed outright. God bless you all, in making that decision. But there are, from our perspective, some ordinances that already cover placement, height of structures, and the like. So that's about it.
Thank you, sir. Yep. Okay, we will go to the public. Just come on up to the mic.
Melody Leisure, 4025 Stanford Avenue. May 10th, have photo. I had a chicken in my fenced-in backyard. I have a 6-foot privacy wood fence. The fence behind me is chain linked. I had a chicken in my backyard. I literally called Lorain police because I thought it was funny. I said, did anybody report a lost chicken? Because it's in my backyard. Mind you, I have a herding dog as a pet. I have a border collie. I set the border collie out to try to herd the chicken so I can catch the chicken so I can give it to the officer. I have no idea where the chicken went. Couldn't find the chicken. There's a rooster that is living on Miami, south of 40th. I hear it constantly every day. Can't even sit out and enjoy sitting in your backyard after a long day of work without hearing the rooster crow. And there's also a duck. Can't find them, but I hear them every day. So I'm a hard no against chickens. I grew up in Camden Township on a 6-acre farm. My grandparents had chickens. They're messy. They stink. The only good thing they are good for, I will admit, is making eggs, making your breakfast. But I can go down on 58 and Russia Road to Brimke Can Flaming Farms for $4, buy a farm fresh dozen of eggs. So chickens do not belong in the city. They are farm animals. Because if somebody gets a chicken permit, I'm asking for a fainting goat permit because I want a fainting goat. And I know in the city, I cannot have a fainting goat.
Fainting.
A fainting goat. You scare it and it faints.
Yeah.
But I'm serious. I mean, I grew up in an agriculture area, went to 4-H kid. If you want to smell what a chicken will smell like, walk through the poultry barn at the fair. That will give you a clue of what you're getting ready to get into. So I'm a hard no against chickens.
Thank you very much.
No, that's okay. Oh, God. Hey, guys. Yeah, it's 9 o'clock. Joanne Zelina, 2214 Wilson Drive. I've been working with Beth since she ran for city council. And my first introduction of knowing that there was a chicken or a rooster was when we worked on the flower thing for the park that sits back on Massachusetts. That was the first time that I really realized it, okay? And I thought, oh my God, a rooster. Holy Hannah. Well, I didn't have any problems. I mean, yeah, they're back there. I live on Wilson Drive. This past summer, my neighbor, 3 houses down, he's a unmarried man, and he says to me and the neighbors, we're all talking, on Adams Street, there was the smell he could not stand any longer. And it was chicken coop. And it got literally worse. I approached Beth. She tried everything that she could do. And my problem, of course, is it was a rental. Okay? Out-of-state owner, a person who is supposed to be a contact for the city, don't know. Okay? But here's the problem, then. That was my knowledge of it, okay? Well, then one day I had 1 chicken in my yard. 2 houses down on Wilson, 3 over from Adams. How in the H did that thing get into my yard? And I went, and I had been stopped at this house before and have told them about the ordinance. I did it to help. Beth had tried everything. And so I decided, well, Joanne, come on, they're neighbors. We'll find out. Well, they had the pen in the backyard. They had a swimming pool that was not maintained. They had a couple kids. And it was like oh, well, I live here. Suck it up. Well, no. Well, this chicken got into my yard. Got in my... How in the H did it get there? I have a fenced-in backyard with a swimming pool. Okay? Well, that ain't flying at the Zelina household. I didn't marry a guy who taught me, forget it. So what I did, I made 2 trips over to that house. And I told the young lady, I said, you better get that chicken out of my yard. I said, or if it gets into my backyard, which is totally fenced in, I said, and it gets into my pole, you will get the heaviest damn bill you ever seen in your life, young lady. That is not allowed in our city. People do not respect our laws anymore within the city. They thumb their nose. They don't care. And 9 chances out of 10, if you turn around and look out, it is rentals. I'm sorry. And it's people who own the homes, who don't live in our city, who could care less. It is nothing more than a tax write-off for them. But yet we, as people that have lived in this city, have just to accept it. And you cannot keep, the police have too much to take care of now as it is with these kids. I mean, and the smell. The smell is another issue. And I'm sorry. Holy Hannah. Absolutely not. No friggin' chickens within the city limits of Lorain. You are disrespecting the other residents who want to live in a clean, unsmelly city now that we don't have the steel plant anymore. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I can tell you
Joseph on 3302 Amherst Avenue. Boy, did I get my laughs tonight. I enjoyed it. I was looking at the clock. I said, oh, we've been here a long time. But I'm glad I stayed. You know, I respect everybody that wants to have pets. Y'all talking about the officer that's supposed to be dog catcher and all this. He don't have time to do what he's doing now. We got cars parked everywhere that shouldn't be parked. And I remember the meeting not long ago. They said they didn't have an officer to do right ticket. And I heard the mayor say the judge is letting them out. He told y'all, talk to the judges, that he letting the people go. Chickens? No. I was raised on a farm in Alabama. We had chickens. And y'all right, they stink. They just, you got laws on the book. Y'all put laws on the book every council meeting. What the purpose of putting it on the book and you don't go by it? Don't even make sense. Think about how many laws that you would put on the book this year, and I guarantee you haven't went by one of them. It's ridiculous. I've been coming to council meeting now for a little over 2 years. Mayor called me and said, don't forget council meeting. I enjoy coming because I learned things that I didn't know. Ray, thanks. Ray, I went, Red, thanks. I think I went to the mayor a couple of times. I appreciate y'all. Y'all do a fantastic job. Keep on doing what you're doing. But remember one something. You work for the peoples. The peoples are the one that send you down here. Respect what they want. If they want a chicken, let them have them. If the majority of the people say they don't want them, vote no.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. I think that's the last of the audience. I don't see any lights. Just a couple quick comments. I think what's been oh, there are some lights. We'll go to the lights here in just a second. I actually think that this, and I apologize everybody's here so late, but I do think this is actually a pretty good council meeting. I've never seen council so behind something unanimously. I think it does actually highlight a few issues, though, that were apparent before. But I think that not only do we need to look at possibly strengthening some of the ordinance that we do have on the books with fines or fees or penalties, I think what it highlights is that we have to look at our finances and put funding into enforcement. That's one of the reasons why I asked the acting chief to be here for our finance committee, because I was concerned about PD staffing levels for hiring and I think it was more of attrition. I think we're just losing people now. So maybe, that might be the issue there, why we went down on the numbers on PD. But perhaps look at funding more inspectors for BHP. I know we all have concerns with violations of code, but that should be something that we kind of think on over the break. And when we get into the finance committees coming up for budgeting, maybe looking at hiring some more individuals to go around and actually cite and enforce the codes we have on the books. So that might be something that we need to do. Councilwoman Sprinkowski.
Yes, I wanted to apologize to Mr. Carrion. When I had the ducks over on West 33rd, I sent that directly to Mr. Swanger, Chief Failing, and Captain Mathewson. I'm sorry that I left you off that one. I know that you were upset. They addressed it immediately, so Jemima Puddle Duck was relocated. So just, I figured as much. So, but I did just want to clarify that, and I apologize. I've got a raging migraine right now, so I'm a little impassioned about this stuff, which isn't helping that. But yeah,
totally understood.
Please, Bremke Farm does the 4 dozen eggs. I will go out and pick up eggs and bring them back and everything.
That's
like
where
that.
we buy our eggs from.
I know, they're great. So
and honey. To buy our honey there too.
I haven't tried that, but I'm just saying, yeah, we need to. I like your ideas of strengthening that. Another thing that it just occurred to me when you're talking about finances. What happens if something happens and we have to cut Officer Swinger's job? I mean, if it comes between the dog wardens, for lack of a better term, the animal control officer, and a patrolman, we have to go with the patrolman in that. What would we do then? There'd be nobody enforcing this. And that is a serious concern. It's not like we're rolling cash. I think every administration has looked for that magical printing press that's supposedly in the basement. It isn't there. And we have to be very cognizant of the finances in that. And this is just something we cannot do at this time. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Councilwoman Henley.
Thank you, Mr. Nutt. I do agree with strengthening the fines and the
enforcement,
the penalties and the enforcement. I think that's something that we need to do across the board on several issues. But as far as people pulling permits for chickens, they don't pull building permits now half the time. So they're certainly not going to, my neighbor kid, when I ask him, about fishing licenses, people just don't do it. Not all of them. And just for the record, the problem property that Joanne was talking about, I have to thank BHP for taking care of that. That's been a while, but they were able to handle that, and they did an excellent job. It took a little while because they were out-of-town owners. But, however, the chickens that we first observed and roosters over at Highview Park several years ago are still there, along with the 8, 10, 12 cars and boats and everything else that are still on that property. Anyhow, I think it's been a good meeting, so thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Councilman Kempton.
Yes, Councilman Nunn, I'd just like to thank you for all the work that you've done on this. I think looking into enforcement is probably the way to go. I think it's pretty much a consensus of it's just not the right time and it's not the right money. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for comments. I don't see any other lights. I don't think I'm going to ask for any action to move this out of count or subcommittee. So, administration, any final comments? No? Good? Good? All right. Thank you, everybody. It's late. Thank you very much. Good.